Okay, evening everyone. Sorry for the delay. I had some tech issues with my web browser. I feel very old saying that, but we're here now and proceeding. So welcome to the Tuesday, May 13th Curriculum Committee meeting. We have our usual committee here. We do not have our teacher or student rep here with us tonight. I'm going to hand it over now to Dr. Dukevich for any administrative remarks.
No remarks this evening.
Okay, all right, thanks. Any public comment, live or recorded? Okay, no public comments. Review of minutes. Good? Thumbs up? All right. All right, now back over to you, Dr. Dukevich. Thanks.
All right, good evening and welcome back. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, so I will be brief. A few things to begin the meeting that are on the agenda. I'm going to go through quickly. I'll pause for any questions from the board. We have review for approval of 2 student clubs at the high school, review for approval of 1 overnight student trip. We have approval of 3 academic affiliation agreements from Swarthmore, Delaware County Community College, and Westchester University. We have review for approval of the Crescent and Dreer Scholarship Awards. These are not recipient details, just the acceptance of the funds. And review for approval of 13 books or textbooks for adoption, which are currently outside the superintendent's office for review, if anyone is interested. Our main agenda tonight include the review for approval of the 26-27 district calendar, which will be presented by Mr. Bechtold, an information update on our Pennsylvania Youth Survey action steps. Our full survey was presented last May, and so these are the action steps, and that will be presented by Ms. Kara Miller. A review for approval of our 25 to 28 flexible instructional day plan. And finally, the majority of our meeting will be spent on our belonging update, and we have our principal team here to present that alongside with me. So I'll pause for any questions on those agenda items from the board.
Anything? Committee? Good? Okay.
Great. At this time, I'm going to welcome Mr. Bechtold to the front, and I will bring up the 26-27 draft calendar.
As he comes up, Dr. Dukevich, the books and textbooks will be on June's agenda. We'll move them till June. Is that the plan?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So board members, you have the month. You have until June's board meeting. If you want to come in and see any of the texts or books, are all outside my office.
Plenty of time to read all 13.
All right. Good evening, everyone. In front of you, you have the 26-27 school calendar. This calendar maintains an after Labor Day start, a full week of spring break, and continues to honor the religious holidays that the board committed to a couple years ago. It also, you'll notice, continues 3 2-hour early dismissals for grades K to 8 for professional development purposes. These are October 23rd, February 5th, and April 2nd. And one of the things that we were able to do is sit down with the administrative team and align these to our MTSS data work. So we're really able to make a lot of good use out of that time to help us move the needle for student learning. We're going to continue the process of having virtual days for high school students on election days. This gives us instructional hours that provides us the opportunity to get out at a reasonable time of the year in June. We're also ending the school year in the second week of June for students, and that is something that when we had the calendar committee that met a couple years ago, that was a priority for our stakeholders. Some of the things that you'll notice that are new on this calendar, so we will be ending the school year for students on June 11th, which is a Friday. And so this allows, there's a couple different things that really plays into this. Number one, we receive feedback that ending at the end of the week may be more beneficial for parents and students and relatives that are coming in. We're also, when we looked at this, the 26-27 calendar had provided us the opportunity to revamp graduation so that we're able to get everybody there. For a couple of years, we've heard feedback about how beneficial it is to have elementary school teachers there and to really get all staff, because while it is a senior event, it's 13 years of a student's career, and so really having all of the people that have touched that student's life is really important. And so thinking creatively about how we could manage this, we were able to go and put this on a Friday. We would have the 8th grade recognition ceremony on Wednesday, June 9th. Thursday, June 10th, we would have the 5th grade move-up ceremonies. The high school students would have their last day of final exams, and then we would have a last day, half day for students at the high school on that Friday. That would give an opportunity for the teachers, grades K to 8, to have a PD day, professional development day, and then the entire district, bless you, would be able to celebrate commencement on Friday, June 11th.
And we've heard from parents over the years also that sometimes Wednesday was a challenge for families, and especially families coming from out of town, to have a graduation on a Wednesday. So that also gave us an opportunity to move graduation to a Friday. We thought, from feedback from parents, they thought that would be a little bit easier on relatives coming in. And we have one of our curriculum participants zooming in, so sorry for the feedback as we get that squared away.
That is all I have on the calendar.
Well, I think we've already had enough feedback. I got to use this well-practiced dad joke thing for something, right? Any feedback, really, on the calendar? Good? Okay. Oh, yes, Janie, please.
So I see that this reverts back to having our spring break the week before the Easter holiday, whereas this year, I believe it was because Easter fell so late that we experimented and moved it up a few weeks. I just wondered if we kind of got any feedback from the community on that, or if there were any lessons learned just for the future when Easter does again fall on a later date.
I think that we heard positive feedback when we had, at the outset, when we had an early break. And then when everybody else had break, everyone was kind of jealous that everybody else was on break. So I think that it cuts both ways. I did hear that for sports, it was a little bit of a challenge with scheduling because the schools that we were playing against did not have competitions the same time we did. So that was one of the challenges that we overcame. We also did hear from some employees that if their school district it was great if their school district was in school when they were off because they got to have some of their own time. But then we also had employees that when we were in school and their kids were off, that it caused somewhat of a challenge. So I think that it was a mixed bag. I think that we'll certainly continue to take feedback, and if we come across that situation again when it's late, consider our options. But at this point, I would say that you'd have people that really liked it, and I think that you also had some people that wish that we would have gone a different direction.
And then this might not be for the calendar per se, but I had another parent inquire about in-school SAT testing. She seemed to recall that Radnor used to do this. So I'm referring to when the SAT exam, because I think currently Radnor hosts, 2 SAT exam dates on the weekends on Saturdays at our high school. But she seemed to recall that in the past there would be an in-school, a school day SAT administration at Radnor High School, and she was just wondering why we stopped doing that. I don't know if anyone recalls kind of the pros and benefits or pros and cons of doing that.
So I've been here since 2011, and when I started here, I believe it was Dr. Kim McGuire, who was our assistant superintendent at the time, really advocated for testing students in grades 9, 10, and 11 with the PSATs. And so we brought that, and the board committed the funds to pay for every student as a practice to help get them up to speed for standardized tests. So 2011, we did not have the SATs as a school day at that time. That would have been predating me. So I know that we've had a couple dates throughout the a couple dates on the weekends for SATs, but to my knowledge, since I've been here, we have not had it during the school day.
So we have the PSAT during the school day still.
is
and we
correct.
continue to do that for all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders.
That's correct.
But we don't do the SAT during the school day.
That's correct.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bechtold. And hopefully we're free of any more interference there. And next I'm going to welcome Miss Kara Miller to the front table. And Kara this year, alongside some of her team, have taken the PACE survey, which we presented at length last year around this time with Nadine Carroll, one of our great consults, and presented that survey, the results, and also our next step. So Kara's here to share what have we done over this year in response to the survey and those actionables that we shared with you last year, I should say. So I'll turn it over to Kara and I'll bring up the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, like Dr. Dukevich said. Okay, like Dr. Dukevich said, I met with our social workers and our SAP coordinator, Nadine Carroll, at the beginning of the school year to review the action steps based on the results. So the Pennsylvania Youth Survey is also known as the PAYS, so I'll be referring to it as the PAYS survey. So the action steps for this year, and even for this presentation, is the overview of PAYS, the summary data, the data that was shared with our SAP teams, what occurred in our health class curriculums. Lieutenant Pinto, who we have a great relationship with from the Radnor Township Police Department, came to our high school and middle school. We have a flyer called our stall stories that are at our high school and middle school, and then we have a Wellness Wednesdays that take place at our Lunch and Learn, and then we ended the year with a parent training to make sure they were aware of it. So this is just a brief overview of the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, the PAYS. It started in 1989 from the Commonwealth here in Pennsylvania, and it's conducted with students in grades 6, 8th, 10th, and 12th. So our students took it in 2023. The results were made available to all of you last June at the curriculum board meeting to review it. And there's the number of the participants that were surveyed in 2023, 971 students. And you can see the breakdown from 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th. This is just a review of the summary results that were shared last June. As you can see in the highlighted area, the numbers that are highlighted in the charts indicate higher than the state average. So these are the numbers that came from our results, from our Radnor Township students. And based on those numbers, that resulted in our action steps and just an approach that our teachers and SAP teams had to take in terms of what was reported from our students. So our Student Assistance Program, also known as SAP, we have that in K-12 buildings, but because of the survey being taken at the middle school and high school level, that's what we're focusing on here. They meet weekly or biweekly in their buildings. After this survey was presented, the SAP teams reviewed this data, and again, that was information that came out of that leadership meeting on how we were going to take these action steps. So the SAP teams reviewed the surveys, and then we talked about what type of action steps we can do as a district to address those numbers that were highlighted in yellow. Okay. Our health classes, both at the Radnor Middle School and high school, the current curriculum that we have continues to focus on the effects of drug and alcohol, the mental aspects of what drugs and alcohol can do to our young children, the physical effects, right, the long-term effects, and the addiction awareness. So in our health classes, K-12, they are focusing on it in an age-appropriate way from a middle school approach and a secondary approach as well. And here's just a flyer that was in our middle school about nicotine and vaping, because as we know, if you look at the results, vaping we know is high. It is, you know, it's not new to our students here, and it is the biggest area of need that we have with our students, as you know. This next slide shows when Lieutenant Pinto from the Radnor Township Police Department came to the high school and middle school. I was able to sit in both of the sessions. It's really great because he has a good relationship with our students. As you know, the Township Police Department makes a true effort and presence within our building. So it's great to see them even come into our classroom. So during these lessons, in conjunction with the health classes, he reviewed the DUI process. What are the legal ramifications if you are driving under the influence? Field tests if there's suspected usage of being under the influence. The legal impact as an underage student, and even legal impacts of parents if a party is at somebody's house, what that entails for the whole family. He also talked about the supports within the community. He reviewed the supports that we have here in our buildings, but also how the police can partner with any resident on how to support them with any type of usage or support that they may need. And then at the end, he gave time for individual questions from the students. So they were able to ask, more in-depth questions. It was their way of asking anonymous questions, and how the law enforcement supports our community. So it was really neat. He came to our middle school and high school to do that, and he really was able to captivate them. The next slide is also known. This is an example of what we called stall stories at our middle school and high school. These flyers were also around our building as well, if you are in any of the buildings. But they were created in conjunction with our SAP team members and our social workers to just spread awareness about overall mental health. And it didn't always have to be about drug and alcohol. It was about how to have healthy habits, both physically and mentally. It allowed our students to be exposed to resources within the community. You can see that flyer. This one was around February, which was teen dating awareness, teen dating violence awareness, and it gave the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It was in our bathrooms as well. When you were washing your hands, the students had access to it. And it allowed them to establish a private moment to focus on their wellness and just another level of awareness where nobody was watching them look at a flyer if this was a concern for them. This was in conjunction with the different awareness months, depending on what each month signified with wellness. Okay. This was always also in conjunction with our Wellness Wednesdays at Radnor High School. During our Lunch and Learn, our Health and PE department and one of our school psychologists created a Wellness Wednesdays. It encourages overall wellness. Again, the mental and physical wellness that we need to have to be independent adults. Again, it talked about healthy relationships, knowing who you are, self-awareness, and we're averaging about 20 to 40 students that attend this Wellness Wednesday. It's held in the black box. There's usually snacks, and it just, again, creates that community within the high school, that level of support, and knowing that we take wellness very seriously here. One of the things that our health and PE department is, even to promote them to attend, is giving them extra credit and saying, come back and tell me what you learned in Wellness Wednesday. So it's really a collaborative effort of all the staff members. And then lastly, we offered a parent training through the Karen Foundation. Nadine Carroll, who's been with us for 16 years at our middle school and high school, was able to provide an overview of the PACE survey results to our parents. It was held at our high school. She is a member of our student assistance program, both at the middle school and high school. She has been able to create very strong relationships with our staff, our families, and teachers during these years. Again, she reviewed the drug usage, the awareness, especially around vaping. She had examples of what they look like, how they're hidden and look like a pen or an AirPod now. She also talked about the trends, again, based on the survey results that were earlier in this slideshow. And she also gave parents some time to talk about conversation starters, to how to engage with your teens about a healthy view of alcohol, how to talk about how to prepare for when you leave to go to college, social events, and she was able to do a lot of Q&A for the parents. Again, during that presentation, I was able to be there. We reviewed the supports that we have. We're able to share what we have between the district in terms of support around mental and physical wellness. So that concludes our action steps. We reviewed the PAYS summary and data. We shared it with our SAP teams. We looked at our health curriculums. We collaborated with the Radnor Township Police Department. We have visual awarenesses between the middle school and the high school. Our Wellness Wednesdays, that's probably in year 2 right now. And then we had a parent training to make sure that we have that homeschool connection. So these actions are going to continue for next year, and we'll continue to build upon them based on what we're finding out of our SAP meetings. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Miller.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate your work here. I just had a quick question. We may have asked this last year when
Okay.
we reviewed the pays, but I was curious if Ms. Carol,
Yes.
Nadine Carol, what was her reaction to the survey results?
She actually shared that at the parent, at the parent training. She was not surprised. She was not surprised by, especially around the vaping, the use of the nicotine and the vaping, because we know nationally that has increased, right? So she was not surprised because she is reviewing those that SAP data every week, especially at our high school, and working with our students and our families, and even our teachers that may have concerns. So she wasn't surprised by it, but she knows that there needs to be a continued work of awareness from a holistic approach.
And were our parents surprised? Could you get a feeling?
They did not, I didn't get the perception that they were surprised. I think they really just want to know that we have that support here at school for them. And as much as we told them about the support that we have for our students, we wanted to make sure that they know we have support for them. And we will get them in touch with resources. We have 3 fabulous social workers, elementary, middle, and high school, that are working with our families just to give them those outside resources.
So is your feeling that these action items and the resources and the things we're doing is moving in the positive direction?
I do believe so,
And our
especially.
students feel that way too? Do they feel supported?
I do, and I think it comes out of them attending the Wellness Wednesdays, right? We're getting the students to do that. Also, working with our school counseling department, making sure that our SEL counselors are aware of all of this and working individually. But I think yes, we focused on drug and alcohol, but it's that mental and physical awareness, who you are as a person, and knowing your body, right? And knowing what you need mentally and physically to be independent and successful.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kind of to your last point, a question. Does the PAYS do anything about relationships or other destructive behaviors?
They do look at behavior and violence. I do believe we were focusing on the drug and alcohol piece, but based on those results, that's why we were looking at that wellness piece as well.
And do you know, so I'm assuming that like on the relationship piece, we weren't out of whack with, there must have been no alarming numbers.
No, it was more, again, looking at at really the vaping, the alcohol use, and where we are with that.
And I'm just curious, have they done anything about, does the PAYS ask any questions about like gambling and?
I don't know, but that came up at our parent training as something else to talk about with addiction.
Kind of addiction.
Correct. And that has come up, I think over time, that our SAP teams are making sure they're aware of it. So that is another layer of addiction that we don't always think about.
I think you're reading more about it, and I think people's experience with how much it's
Correct.
ever present and available. I think particularly at the middle school to have some programming. I think it's something we should consider as awareness, and then in the high school as well.
And I can take that back, especially to our teams about that, because that is a concern that is valid. Yeah.
And I would say that I hear from parents all the time, so really concerned, especially with these devices.
Correct. Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Lau?
I echo Ms. Duffy's suggestion
Yeah.
relating to gambling addiction. And then also, I like this focus on abusive relationships. And I know one of the flyers does allude to it, but just more of an emphasis on controlling behavior, which I think a lot of times, precedes abusive behavior, and kind of, I think, alerting students to controlling behavior and how that's also not inappropriate and can be a gateway toward violence. And because I think, that's kind of an area that we're all kind of like, is newer to us, right? And kind of recognizing how, just, someone demanding to monitor your texts or having your passwords to your own accounts, listening to your voicemails or your, how that kind of behavior is a red flag, and not appropriate either.
That's good. That's good feedback. I appreciate that. And back to, looking at health overall. I mean, they were talking about, healthy study habits, sleep, eating, and how it impacts, your whole life, right? So it's not just, relationships, drug and alcohol, but also what healthy habits are you doing each day, again, to have, an independent lifestyle.
Okay, just a couple of questions. So the PAYS study will be done this year, and then the report will be out next year? Is that?
So 2023, so probably in the fall, they'll do it again in 2025.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, I was just wondering when the report's
the next
come out.
round, yeah.
Okay. So the most recent report is from a couple years ago.
2023, results were reported last June of 2024, by the time that students took them, and they were made aware to us by the state, and then we
Okay.
reported last June.
Okay, got it, all right. And, I was just reading about, because I think you had a good question, Ms. Duffy, about the purview of the survey, and it is limited to basically, substances and substance use. But there's an interesting part here. It says the survey assesses risk factors that are related to those behaviors and the protective factors that help guard against them. So that could be kind of a place for
Yeah.
relationships, as a protective factor, perhaps. Good. I had one question about the Wellness Wednesdays. Do we have any information about how often that's attended or how well that's attended?
So it's once a month during our lunch and learn, and we are averaging 20 to 40 students that attend. And,
Pretty good.
it's going to go up and down, because lunch and learn is open to students depending on what they need. Maybe that month they're preparing for a test, or they have something with their music or art. So I think I think we're moving in the right direction with it. I mean, of course, we would love to see more students, but it's the buy-in that we have to do with our students again. So I feel with the health and PE department making that connection, even, incentivizing them with
Yeah.
extra credit. But again, it goes back to building healthy relationships with our students and saying, okay, I know this is a safe person that I can go to. I'm going to learn some information, and I know that I can go to them after this if I have questions. But I know they're working hard to get students there.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it.
Great,
that
great.
it?
Well,
Okay, thank
thank
you.
you to Ms. Miller. Again, she was charged this year with oversight of many of these things, and awareness, prevention, support, and resources really is the recipe for, strong support of our students and their families. So
Yeah,
thank you,
and
Mrs. Miller.
I just want to add, the team that worked on these action steps, that they're implementing them in our schools, are doing a phenomenal job. That's our social workers, our SAP team members, our counselors. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge them, because they're with their kids every day. Thank you.
All right, thanks again. Our next agenda item, kind of a boring topic, but I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. It's the flexible instructional day plan. So every 3 years, in order for us to be able to count hours during an inclement weather day, we have to submit a plan that's board approved and also approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So this next plan is 3 years long. The one is sunsetting in June. We're coming off of 3 years. There's a 7-page document here, and I'm just going to briefly speak to it. The first page is contextual. So what is the background? What is our experience at Radnor with using remote instructional days, or flexible instructional days, I should say, and also the delineation between flexible instructional days and virtual instructional days. You can see that at the bottom. In all, we've only used 3 of these type of days over the last 3 years, so they're rare, and that's for a good reason. But in the process of devising this new plan, we did survey teachers, students, and parents. We had a pretty strong turnout in response rate, 100 teachers, 900 students, and almost 500 parents. On page 3, you can see a summary of that analysis, and I'll be brief here. Generally, in K to 5, the consensus was that during a flexible instructional day, parents were more needed to provide support for students, so they were not very independent. Certainly, when you get to the upper levels of elementary, they were more independent, but a high level of need was there by caregivers. Parents, teachers, and students were not surveyed, I'm sorry, in K-5, but parents and teachers felt that although the flexible model served a purpose, it did not align well with in-person instruction. And in 5th grade, K-5 also, there was the sentiment and comments that parents would like to see the end of virtual instructional days, at least in the format where technology and synchronous experience was part of it. In 6 to 8, 9 to 12, a lot different, actually, the feedback. One, there was less dependence on caregivers, and especially at the high school level, almost none. there was a perception that actually the instructional model was actually not that far off of in-person instruction, which was interesting. And then, generally speaking, they felt that the current model was actually meeting the needs of the program as it was, more or less with some tweaks. The other delineation between the levels is based on our 900 hours or 990 hours at the high school, which is school code. There's a surplus of hours in K to 5 and 6 to 8, whereas at the 9 to 12 level, there's very little surplus. So this gives us some wiggle room, almost a sliding scale of how we determine when a virtual instructional day is needed. Long story short, based on all of that and consensus to our team, we developed a plan that's unique K to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. Although the plan that we're presenting to the PDE will be approved by PDE does not include snow day mention, it's really just a matter if you use a flexible instructional day, what does it look like? For this purpose, K to 5 would be an asynchronous experience, so project-based learning, something they're doing on their own, they're reading, writing a report, something like that with teacher feedback later. For 6 to 8, again, after using some snow days, we would then go to a version of the model we have now, which is a synchronous day, but it's condensed to the first half of the day, where the second half would be asynchronous. And then the high school would operate on a very similar model, though less snow days before we would initiate a flexible instructional day. And one more time, the virtual instructional day, although it seems very similar, and it's actually the same model we use, one is planned, the other is based on inclement conditions or an emergency. So obviously in a planned situation, you can prepare much better. Students will know what to expect, and materials can be best prepared as well.
So we've talked about this before, so we're going to move and we'll share with our community. I mean, some will start to hear it tonight, and those hundreds watching our meeting. But we will share something as we go into next school year. Snow days will happen at the elementary level, and we'll have at least 6 snow days before we even then call an asynchronous day. Now, we average 2 snow days a year. When we look back over a 10-year span, we don't average a lot of snow days each year. But if we ever did get hit with a year where there's a big storm and all of a sudden we've used up 6 days, somewhere in that 5 to 6 days, we would then set up some asynchronous work for the elementary. But at the elementary level, we're looking at having snow days, and we're also going to save some on technology, because one of the reasons we're holding on to one-to-one in the elementary level was for these virtual days for snow, and we won't have a need anymore in the elementary K to 5. At the middle school level, we're looking at roughly 4 days, so we have a 4-day snow day cushion, and then we would kick into the the synchronous half-day model for them, and then only 2 days at the high school. So the high school could have up to 2 snow days. We haven't made that decision on, are we just going to, that'll be just the first days will go that way, which now is kind of trending that way. In the past, we've left the flexibility of, it could be that asynchronous or not, with like the high school specifically. I think we're going to use up those 2 snow days first, and then after that, the high school will be asynchronous. And then obviously the elementary and the middle school have more of a cushion of snow days.
And I'll just finish briefly. The last 3 pages of the document that has been distributed and is on board docs is the actual narrative we submit to PDE for approval. And that will require board action as part of the May board meeting. So if there's any questions about our plan or the process we took to arrive where we are today, I'm happy to answer anything.
Okay, committee, any comments, questions? Ms. Lau?
So I should have brought this up during the calendar agenda item, but am I right that this school year, we had Election Day in November as a virtual instruction day, but the upcoming primary day on May 20th is not. It's just no school,
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
But next year, or this calendar, 26, so 2 years from now, both days will be virtual instruction days. Is that right?
I believe, if I can bring this up real
For
quick.
the high
For
school.
the high school only, and
Okay.
that speaks back to the small number of hours between what we need to meet for 990 school code and what's in the calendar.
Got it. And then,
Yeah.
so what's the plan for next year?
Oh,
2025 to 2026?
Right, because we're going 2 years ahead.
Right.
If memory serves, we have one, which is on Election Day next year. That's a virtual instructional day for the high school only.
Okay, got it.
I can confirm that when I look at the calendar, but I'm pretty certain that's what it is.
Anyone else? No further thoughts on FIDS?
It's much to do about very little. It's a rare event, thankfully. So, but we'll be prepared when and if we need to.
And it is a little, just there's a lot of work, and I thank, Sean and the team, and a lot of hands in this. It's a lot of work with the state that we have to do to justify all of this, and we don't necessarily have to explain all the different pieces to the community, but it gets very confusing, and it's a ton of work for very few days.
All right. So our final agenda item, and I'm going to invite our ITHN team to the front here, Mr. Wagner and Dr. Bryan. You may recall the last engagement we had around belonging was our intro in November, which was to the full board at the time. And so we're coming back to you near at the end of the school year here to share the action plan that we spoke to back in the fall and how things have unfolded at each building. So I'll be brief as Mr. Wagner and Dr. Bryan get prepared. You'll see as we go through this agenda, each building will have an opportunity to share what their plan was, how it unfolded, what they learned from their student climate results, their staff climate results, and some action items that are moving forward at each of their respective buildings. I'll also mention as a district as a whole, our staff climate survey is looked up by Dr. Baxter and myself, other administrators. Every department received their own results, and so that they move that forward with their department specifically, food service, custodial maintenance, et cetera, our building here. So it's not just the building level. We're all kind of working to do the same work and try to determine what are ways we can improve. We've asked each building to share for about 5 to 7 minutes and then pause for questions from the board, and then we'll move on to the next building from there. And before I turn it over to ITHN, just a quick review. Our plan for the year is on page 2 in the packet, which we did present in November. So I was not going to reiterate that just for the sake of time. And on page 3, and this year marked a change in the way we engaged our staff climate survey. We actually created 4 open-ended, which was pretty much an analysis of the previous 2 years, feedback we received, and also guidance from our consultant group. And then our student climate survey this year was reduced to a smaller version of the psychological sense of school membership survey, and the high school was slightly adapted also. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wagner and Dr. Bryan.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the ongoing work and belonging at ITHN. We want to share some of the things that we have worked on this year. Our principal team has met with Dignity consultant Dr. Nathan Hostetler to review the staff and student climate survey data and develop action items to address next steps. We compared results from last school year to this school year, identifying strengths and opportunities, and shared the results with our staff. We continue to work collaboratively to address belonging at ITHN. It's something that we are very serious about. This work is ongoing, so our team has facilitated internal leadership meetings with our belonging committee throughout the school year to brainstorm action steps to continue to improve the feeling of belonging among staff and students. We've held monthly professional development meetings where we utilize dignity dispositions. We created mixed groups of staff engaged in collaborative activities with colleagues they might not frequently cross paths with, which really allowed them to learn more about each other and gain perspectives from teachers and other grade levels and departments. We've incorporated weekly staff shout-outs from colleagues to recognize the efforts and great things that our staff members do each day. After a discussion with John Cronapple earlier this school year, we decided to continue with empathy interviews for teachers and paraprofessionals, something that we did last year as well. This gave us an opportunity to listen to staff to understand their experiences and feelings, providing insight into their needs and perspectives. We're going to be holding empathy interviews with students as part of our next steps. Dr. Bryan will be expanding on this when talking about our next steps when it's her turn. We incorporate dignity dispositions daily, starting each day with our classroom morning meetings. As part of our responsive classroom approach, this is a time for our students to build relationships with each other and practice active listening. Additionally, the dignity dispositions have been incorporated into NEST. We worked with our PTO this year to bring in inspirational assembly with Ben Hartraft, an autism advocate who shares how inclusion and kindness shaped his life as a person with autism. Much of this assembly really focused on many of the dignity dispositions. Our belonging committee has worked together to develop school-wide activities inside and outside of the school to increase belonging among staff. We have focused on building internal leadership so that others feel empowered and actively contribute to the overall growth of our school. Many of our teachers have stepped up to lead professional development within our school, including trainings focused on the dignity dispositions. Specifically, this occurred with the book study for the power of our words, where members of a group shared key takeaways with staff during professional development days. Finally, we have partnered with our PTO to offer parent trainings on various topics throughout the year. And these trainings have provided our parents with more opportunities to be part of our school community while also getting a chance to know our staff. So areas to celebrate when looking at our staff climate survey data. An analysis of our staff data shows that we have a positive work environment at Ithan. In our data, there was a reoccurring theme that we have a culture of mutual support where everyone is willing to help whenever they can. There was also a reoccurring theme of positive collaboration. The Ithan team works well together, sharing responsibilities to ensure no one feels overwhelmed. There's a strong willingness to help each other out, and collaborative efforts are evident at all levels and in all areas throughout the school. Both of these areas really suggest and show us that we have a really positive work environment at Ithan, and we feel this contributes to good staff morale and job satisfaction. Our administrative team works hard on this, and we try to show our staff that we genuinely care about them by being present for them and listening to them. Our data also gave us some areas to think about for growth. There's a strong desire to find more ways to bring staff together. Our staff stated that they want more monthly opportunities for casual interaction and bonding, for example, like monthly breakfast socials, things like that. These opportunities provide a relaxed environment for staff to connect with those that they don't often work with, enhancing overall team cohesion. We are addressing that by working with our belonging committee to host after-school get-togethers with all Ithan staff, and turnout for those events have been great this year, and we're looking forward to more opportunities next year. Another area for growth that came out of our staff data involves time constraints. Time is identified as a scarce resource. So there's a desire for more built-in time for preparation, setup, completing daily tasks. And we're hoping to address this with our new schedule that we're creating for the upcoming school year. Overall, addressing time management and finding more ways for staff to come together could further enhance the work environment at Ithan. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bryan, where she's going to discuss the student climate survey and our next steps.
Hi, good evening. So as a new administrative team, we were really encouraged to see that the majority of our students expressed pride in being a part of the Ithan community. Our overall score was a 3.91, which reflects positively on our school climate. Notably, question number 3 on the survey, do you feel like you belong at your school, received a strong score of 4.25. And when we met with Dr. Hostetler, he emphasized that this particular question is key, a key indicator of our students feeling like they belong, and which makes this result truly meaningful to us. While these outcomes are encouraging, we recognize that there's always room for growth. 2 additional survey questions that stood out for us as areas of further exploration was, are most of our teachers in our school, are most of the teachers in your school interested in you? And is there a teacher or adult in or at school that you can talk to if you have a problem? Although the number of the lower responses to these questions was small, each represents an important opportunity for us to better understand and support our students' experiences in school. Another area we plan to focus on, although not identified as a major concern, is ensuring that every student feels that they are treated with the same level of respect as their peers. We believe this is foundational to a strong sense of belonging and equity within our school system. These focus areas were reviewed during one of our meetings with John Kronapple and further informed by our conversations with Dr. Nathan Hostetler. Together, these discussions helped shape an action plan that we believe will address these key areas while also strengthening our overall approach to student connections and supports in our building. Once again, as a new team, we are thrilled by the pride of our students and feeling like they are a part of Ithan, and we are committed to building on that foundation with intentional student-centered work. So we're looking at our action plan for next year, or our action plan we actually started this year. As a new team, we are committed to continuing the work of fostering relationships with our students through our belonging team. We will deepen this effort by incorporating a variety of strategies, including our classroom pop-ins, the use of restorative practices, opportunities for recreational group activities with our students, lunchtime benefits and hanging out with them at recess, and strengthening the collaboration and communication with our families. So building-wide, if you're looking at the whole building, we're going to continue to be visible in our leadership styles in the building and be able to be there to support our staff and further strengthen a sense of community and support within our school. We're going to acknowledge staff and support staff, regularly acknowledging and appreciating the contributions of them, and that will help to reinforce and boost their morale in school, and enhance our collaboration opportunities, which is encouraging and facilitating more opportunities for collaboration amongst our staff, enhancing the teamwork and overall efficiency. And then finally, which is true and dear to my heart, is focus on paraprofessional trainings, because they're an intricate part of our staff, and they are on the ground floor seeing our students on a daily basis. Per our empathy interviews that we conducted, we found that our pairs really appreciated their trainings this year, as they included more, they were included more in the needs of our buildings, and thereby having, feeling of being involved in our goals and our initiatives. Several of them pointed out during our interviews that they felt like they truly were belonging to our building, which sometimes that wasn't always such the case. Next year, our focus is going to be on active listening and empathy. Per the data from our student climate survey and based on our readings from the book Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity by Cobb and Kronapple, we're going to be focusing on, that's going to be our overarching focus for next year. So you'll see that within our action steps. The steps that we're going to do moving forward is we met with Dr. Hostetler already to develop a plan addressing our targeted focus areas. We're going to conduct empathy interviews with our students. We'll recruit student volunteers to participate in empathy interviews aimed at exploring the targeted areas more deeply. Dr. Hostetler supported us in crafting specific interview questions based on our student results and strategies for engaging our student participants. Some of our interview, I mean, I could go through our interview questions, but there's about 5 of them. They include, like, what do your teachers do to help you feel seen, heard, safe at Ithan? Is there anything that happens at Ithan that makes you feel less seen, heard, or safe? If there was one thing that you could change about how people treat one another at Ithan, what would it be? Is there one or more adults in the school that you feel that you can trust and talk to if you have a problem? And what is the best part of being a student at Ithan? So those would be the questions that would be included in the survey, in the interview. Involving our paraprofessionals. So building on our findings of the empathy interviews with our paraprofessionals, we create a plan. Again, Dr. Hostetler's guidance was seen throughout this process to involve them in the upcoming student interviews. Our school psychologist has also supported this administrative team in facilitating related professional development PD sessions for our paraprofessionals, so they would feel comfortable, obviously, with that process of conducting those interviews, which would actively engage that active listening that we're looking to do across our building. Paraprofessionals recently completed a first part of a 2-part PD series on active listening and empathy. The final session is scheduled for next week and will include a review of the student survey data that you guys are seeing this evening. Our next steps in the immediate term is to begin an outreach of students to secure participants for the interviews, conduct and collect empathy interview data from our students, and then our summer work will be reviewing and analyzing the student interview data to gather insights and identify key themes. We will use the findings to inform professional development planning and school-wide initiatives for the upcoming school year. For our focus next year, again, this is going beyond just the active listening, is to expand on the active listening PD, extend current paraprofessional PD on active listening empathy to all of our staff members at the beginning of the school year. Leverage student feedback. We're going to use the data from our student empathy interviews to guide professional development and school climate efforts. And we are going to build teacher capacity. We're going to coach our teachers in practicing active listening with our colleagues, then expand those practices to foster stronger listening habits among students. I will say that we have already been taking part in trying to model and work through active listening techniques when we meet with our students, like in case they have to come see us for our office for some reason. Well, that's everything.
Questions for the Ithan team?
Ms. Lowe?
And do you want all the questions at the end, too? Do you want, or?
Well, because the building initiatives and action steps are very relevant to where they are now, I thought we'd stop at each time, if that works best for you.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work on this. I really appreciate how you disaggregated the data and looked at it. You reference question 2 and question 4 and how 7% seems like a nominal, a very small number. But, I think we would all agree that when it comes to belonging, we want that number to be 0, right? Like, we want every single student and every person who works in our district to feel like they belong here. So I appreciate you doing that deep dive and kind of acknowledging that, even the small numbers, are worthy of our attention. So I was just wondering if you did that kind of deep dive, if you noticed with respect to any other questions where there might have been a small, number, but that you also thought was significant.
I mean, I can say that the additional question that I'd added, number 4, that was actually stretching. And one of the reasons why I wanted to include it was one of the areas that actually I included pretty late in this presentation, is that piece of being equitable and feeling like the kids it wasn't a standout, but that is really important, especially when we are the team that's going to enforce most of the discipline and what our expectations are for students. We want to make sure they all feel like it's equitable, and because then they can start to trust us and know we're not treating anybody indifferently. And that's, I think, a really great role model for our teachers as well, right? So we're trying to model that feeling, and I just thought it was a really, even though a little, like to what you said, even though it's a small amount, it's huge, and I think it will be easily incorporated into our trainings for our staff.
Yeah, I think it's important. So if you look at those questions, it was number 2 and 4, even though, again, those numbers are small. And, it's really, when we look at it, we want all the kids to feel like the teachers in the school are interested in them, right? We want them to feel like they have someone that they can go to. So one of the things that we don't know from this survey is when they're actually answering these questions, like what's going through their mind when they're answering these questions. So the great thing about doing these empathy interviews is it really gets us, gets to the heart of it, and will give them a chance to elaborate so we have a better understanding of, why maybe some students might have answered that a certain way.
Others? Good? Okay.
You're welcome.
I would just ask briefly if there are any areas that you're particularly focused on for growing or improving in the data.
Or what areas we're hoping,
With the student data?
Yeah.
or the staff? Okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah, good. I'm referring to the climate survey numbers on page 5.
Yeah, I think, again, I think for me, those 2 questions still, even though, those numbers are small, for me, those questions really stand out. Those are really meaningful to me. I want my students to feel like they have someone in the building. I want my students to feel like that there are adults in the building that are interested in them. So those really are ones that I want to see, grow even higher.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback on that, like question number 2, the reason why I think it's important to go and do a deeper dive is that question is, are most teachers in your school interested in you? That's really, one thing I can say, having that middle school background, is that's challenging because you have one teacher every year, and then when they get to 5th grade, they might move around a little bit, and then they have their electives / specials teachers. So when kids are hearing word most, they're going to be like, does everybody know? And so you want to take that deeper dive to make sure we're not missing anything, because that one little word really does change it a little bit. And that was one of the questions we had Dr. Hostin, like, what should we be worried about that? So he thought that was a really good focus to do a deeper dive on that question in particular, because we were not quite sure, like, what was going through their minds when they were answering that question.
And I think with those 2 questions as well, like when I look at them, sometimes I feel like, do those students feel safe? And that's something that, is really important to us. We want all of our kids to feel safe. And so, again, we want them to feel like they have adults they can go to, and that's something that we really do. We really take seriously, and it's those two questions are the two questions we really spend a lot of time on when we talk to our staff about the results.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wagner and Dr. Bryan. And next, we're going to have Dr. Young approach. She's going to speak to the Radnor results.
Again, very rare that people ask me to turn on a microphone, but I'll accept it. So I represent both Mr. Smarecki and I. He sends his regards. We had a conflict this evening, so thank you. And I'm pleased to follow the ITHN team, and I'm also very pleased to be here. This was it's probably my second favorite subject, if you know me well, and number one is all things Radnor, so we're good to go. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak about where we are with our climate and our culture and the district's initiative with dignity and belonging. At RES, we're a proud, caring, and committed community. Our survey data affirms that. But this year we leaned into the dignity disposition, and specifically we focused on reflection and engagement. And the reason we went that way is we feel very strongly that growth and feedback are tied closely together. And in a high-performing culture like Radnor, vulnerability and trust are really important to be able to receive that feedback. Feedback can feel very personal even when it's professional, and especially for educators who care deeply and are highly committed to their positions. We're committed to embracing it, and knowing that reflection, though sometimes hard, is what will move us forward. At the heart of our work is the belief that every person's inherent worth is in every person's inherent worth and our capacity to grow even when we're performing well. That means we need to engage in reflective conversations, staying grounded in a shared purpose, and focus on problem solving and not defensiveness. As principal, I'm fully aware I set the tone for how feedback is delivered and received. This year, our staff has helped me grow through honest, thoughtful input, and their feedback centered on being appreciated, treated fairly, and feeling seen has helped translate our shared values into clear action for our children. I'm grateful for the journey we're on together and proud of the RES staff's courage and unwavering commitment to keep growing. It's always benefiting our students. We've also relied on our survey data to guide our work specifically and to give us some concrete steps. So while we can speak of dignity as a whole, we really do need to be able to turn that into action steps. Our data continues to affirm our greatest strength is our relationships in the building, both amongst colleague to colleague as well as colleague to student. But instead of resting on the positive results, we did want to lean into where we can grow even stronger. Our teachers are working incredibly hard, and we're operating at a high level. And it's not always easy to pause and take the time to reflect. But when we do, we share ideas, we listen with intention, we create even more joyful, supportive spaces for both students and staff, and I'm among them. A key theme that emerged in our conversations and follow-ups that came from reviewing our survey data was a desire for more time for staff to collaborate. Radnor is a place where the bar is set high, both internally and externally, and that makes time for meaningful planning and problem solving critical. When you have a staff as strong as ours, creating opportunities for collaboration is essential, and it will help us reach that academic excellence we strive for every single day for our children. Another theme that came from reviewing and really with small group and one-on-one conversations was a need for increased efficiency as we engage on important academic shifts aligned with valid and reliable data tools. Our staff has demonstrated patience and openness in expanding evidence-based practices and high-impact instructional strategies. And we have concluded together, and it's of course not our words, that we do not need to work harder, we just need to work smarter. We hope to maximize instructional time with the strategies that have the highest impact, and that will help us get us there. That is a goal for next year, is to pick those strategies, and collaboration is going to be key to get us there. And while we cannot create more hours in the day, time is always a desire. We can reimagine how we use time we have, and in essence, our dignity work is directly supporting academic excellence through a foundation of trust and collaboration with those who know our children best, and that is their parents and our staff. This isn't new for us. It's simply the next phase in our journey at Radnor. This year, we've made incremental progress that we're quite proud of. We've reviewed and adjusted our practices every trimester, streamlined team meetings, integrated key tasks into existing structures, and woven this work into our daily rhythm. We have a goal to reduce the need to pull from teacher planning time and open up more space for that collaboration they desperately desire and deserve, and while always maintaining our commitment to excellence to children. We're not there yet, but each cycle brings us a little closer to that balance we all hope to achieve. These ongoing conversations, sparked by surveys and one-on-one dialogue, has helped to continue the improvements that we focused on last year, which was clarity, communication, and collaboration. And I am a very proud principal, but I am not satisfied, and that's a good thing. This year also marks our 3rd year of running focus groups with our students post-survey results. These sessions remain our most valuable tools for reflection and then driving direction. Students' survey data affirm the positive, that they have strong connections between students and teachers. But our focus group allowed us to dig deeper, find that group, and we asked very specific questions, mostly around when do you feel seen, heard, and valued by your teachers? Students shared examples rooted in everyday moments. When teachers adjust the pace, when they notice that we're tired. When homework feels meaningful, not repetitive. When they're trusted with responsibilities and independence. I believe one example was going to the Lost and Found independently. When all holidays are celebrated. When diverse family structures are acknowledged and accommodated for. When lessons are engaging. When small group is offered. And it's okay to pass during morning meeting. They also reinforce past changes from previous focus groups, like the appreciation for our mix-up days, recognition of the positive language used in responsive classroom strategies, so that's reinforcing, reminding, and redirecting language, and the enjoyment of having a variety and choice, including our new Recess Reimagined program and the friendship and social groups that they can choose to go to during recess. They ask thoughtful questions, forward thinking. Why can't we earn more independence during the hallway when not everyone struggles with these expectations? Could staff time simply be more flexible? And my favorite, and I apologize to our PDE team, what's the deal with PSSAs being crammed into just 2 weeks? So their insights remind us that by 3rd grade, they can have these deep conversations about dignity with us, and these conversations, if we will listen, they will absolutely guide us. So for our action plans moving forward, we use 3 guiding questions to come up with these bullet points, and to respect time, I won't go through them, but I will give you the questions that helped land us there. How are we already celebrating students' unique identities, and how can we create more everyday moments to help them feel known? In what authentic ways are we elevating student voice, and how can we expand on those efforts? And when do students experience trust and independence from their teachers, and what joyful, simple shifts could deepen that sense of independence? So we've used both qualitative and quantitative data to give us confidence in the work that we're doing at RES. And a clear sign is we are no longer hearing the same repeated concerns in student focus groups, and instead we're hearing new insights, and the students are noticing when we respond to their feedback. The behavioral data also backs this up. Our referrals for support outside the classroom have decreased significantly. Most importantly, we're identifying when behavior stems from structural issues we can address quite easily, whether through routines, transitions, or supervision. And these adjustments are in line with our commitment to the RES way of responsibility, empathy, and self-awareness. So I thank you again for the ongoing support of this initiative. The consultation, the time, the resources, you've provided us with all the right ingredients to move us forward intentionally and collectively. At Radnor, we remain committed to continuous improvement, and we remain committed to listening, because when we do, our students always guide us towards a more dignified, inclusive, and joyful place to learn. I'm honored to represent the remarkable work of our teachers and what they do every day at RES, and I am looking forward to what questions you have for me.
Thank you, Dr. Young. So Claire, would you like to?
I don't have any questions, but I'm really delighted to hear of all the different, I'll say this now, but for Ethan as well and Radnor, what's really, really great to see is that you've been given the resources through this initiative to make it your own, each building, and that really comes across, and I appreciate that, and I think that adds to the belonging. So each building has their own sense of belonging through the identity that they're building through these resources. So I really appreciate the explanation, both sets, and I'm sure Wayne will be the same. And I'll ask this while I have the microphone, because you don't want to give me the microphone. Is Dr. Frohnapple and Dr. Hossetter, are there publications, are there books that we as board members could get our hands on? I'd love to kind of see where that's coming from.
Right, so we do have the district's focus on belonging in a culture of dignity by Frohnapple and Floyd, which really has guided this work that we've done and moved us along. But I have also found just a number of offsets from that, along with my colleagues. And if I were to recommend one book to start, I might start with Leading with Dignity by Donna Hicks, which is a lot of the work that Frohnapple and Cobb focused on. Sorry, I think I called him Floyd earlier. I apologize for that. We're very personal. I really find that her work is the foundation for what they have now moved towards action steps and made more concrete. So I am cautious with some of the work that is out there that could possibly just be more, doesn't really give you that drive in the action steps. And I feel very strongly that the close relationship that I have with Mr. Wagner and Dr. Marzano also helps, because we can pivot and share ideas. And I also celebrate your recognition that we each are doing very different things. And if we are in line with what Donna Hicks shares and John Frohnapple shares, that belonging is really the outcome. And it's when we're engaging in activities that honor our inherent worth for who we are, and that we have that connection internally, we have that connection with one another, and that we are connected to a greater purpose, then we will do great things for children. So I appreciate that.
So actually, we do have this book.
Mhm.
We have the book.
That's what you have.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the Donna Hicks one would be another follow-up. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, and I guess, I think you got to it a little bit in the end of your
I
answer.
spoke broadly, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
welcome to
But
go a little
'cause
deeper if you'd like.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also appreciate that, you have the opportunity to kind of do your own thing, each school, but in the whole spirit, I've heard collaboration from both, and I'm sure I'm going to continue to hear that you're collaborating with your staff, you're collaborating with your students, which is great. But are you collaborating with one another? Because I think, I think back to when I heard Dr. Weidlich, I think it was in March when he did the presentation, and they told us that they have every student in a cafeteria, and they have to know that that someone in the building knows them. I mean, that was so powerful to me, that visual. And so I'm hoping that you're sharing those kinds of things, that perhaps maybe there's practices that make sense for us to do as a district.
Absolutely.
When they're, and then I guess, and maybe this is coming a little off of what we heard from Ethan, but is there a question of, that you, in the survey, when you did look at, the detail, because you didn't present that here,
Right.
That was, stood out to you as an area of concern, and maybe your 7%, like what, even though they're positive numbers, but what could you do?
Right, so I think we really looked at both the staff survey and then the student survey, and when we found similarities there. So maybe zoning in a little bit on, if you look at the dignity dispositions and where the summary of it all falls and the overall score, if you zone in on treated fairly, right? What's happening there? And then if you look at the question that specifically teases out, is there a teacher in the building that is interested in me, and do I feel I have that connection? Those two jumped out for us in our consultation time, because really it's about relationships when you're going through anything difficult or receiving feedback, or if, as like Dr. Bryant shared, sometimes we do have students in our office and we need to have conversations with them. Students are going to feel that they were treated fairly, and I would say the same about my journey when I was a teacher. I won't speak for our teachers, but I think the survey data shows that as well. You're going to feel that you're treated fairly if that connection is there, and I'm sorry, that's a responsive classroom habit, so I'm excited about that. That's the connection piece. But if that connection is there between student and teacher, student and sometimes administrator, teacher and administrator, principal and assistant superintendent, when that connection is there and you're receiving that feedback, you will feel a little more treated fairly because your voice is heard. There's that openness, that patientness. Do you know enough about me? To steal some words from my friend Kelly Bourne behind me. All those pieces help us feel that we're being treated fairly and then allow us to open up that space for reflection. So for us at Radnor, we feel that's the connection there. And loving Dr. Kent's idea with the laying the cards out and making sure, and we have talked about that. And rather than tease it out, because the cohort is changing from year to year, and we also know developmentally children start to pull away from their connection to their teacher around the end of 4th grade and 5th grade, as they should. That's developmentally appropriate. Sometimes we could drill into that data a little too closely and lose the bigger picture. So for us, we've just committed to, let's find the 15% we're missing, and let's go for it. And if we stay in line with evidence-based strategies and instruction, listen to their voices when they have questions, and find these areas where we could improve, that number should drop, and we should find those students that we're missing, absolutely. But some of it can be developmentally appropriate to start to pull away from that, and you do want to see that because you want to carry them on to their next secondary journey. So, yeah, it's that shared release of responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Young, I just have to really commend you on your presentation skills, because I feel like you do a really wonderful job of, because we're given access to your slides ahead of time, we've read them all, and instead of kind of reiterating, what we've already read, you do a really good job of synthesizing it all for us and really getting to the heart of but what does this all mean? And what do we intend to do about it or do with it?
Thank you.
And then you also weave in kind of the anecdotal illustrations that I think really, for us who aren't in the buildings every day, like you guys are, for me, my kids attended RES, and it really resonated and really did illustrate exactly what you were talking about and getting at. So I really appreciate you doing that for us. I think I agree with you and the previous presenters on for Ethan. I think question 2 is just problematically phrased. It's I don't know why they put the word most in there, because I don't what's the magic number? If 51% of the teachers are interested in me, it's okay. I would just replace most with the, are the teachers in the school interested in me? And I think most students would interpret that as meaning, are the ones who should be interested in me? Maybe they don't want,
valid point.
yeah, maybe they don't want too many teachers interested in them, right? So, right.
Yes, it could
right.
be interpreted absolutely the opposite way. I value that feedback very much.
Yeah. But yeah, I just really appreciate kind of, you getting to the heart of why do we do this, right? We don't do this to just have a bunch of numbers and I'm sure this happens. You guys compare the numbers year to year, you compare them with each other, that's kind of natural and unavoidable. But I think what we, the big picture that you reference, it's well, why are we doing this? What's kind of the heart of what's most important to come out of this? So I really appreciate your focus on that. And, because I think it's tempting to kind of get lost in the weeds and really, whereas we kind of have to force ourselves to pull back and be well, ultimately, what do we want to get out of this? It's kind of this consensus that we want every single person to feel like they belong, that they feel safe and they feel valued and heard. And this helps us get there, but ultimately that's kind of most important. So I appreciate that kind of refocus back on the big picture.
So if I may share, that was a tremendous compliment, and I'm really grateful for it, and it's very powerful for me to receive. But I also must share a little story with you. So tomorrow, a group of 4th graders are going to watch this presentation, and they're specifically going to watch how much eye contact I made. I had the honor of being in a classroom and watching a teacher present those expectations as a group of children gave their report cards. So I'll be sure to make sure that I share that particular clip with the children when they rate me. So,
A plus.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, now I got to make sure my eye contact game is tuned up here. So just really quickly, I thought I would ask a question that was, the last one seemed kind of like a zinger, which I did not intend at all. It was more of just, thinking about just, positive directions going forward. So I was thinking of pointing out that you mentioned it in your presentation, and I did not know this, but apparently learning more about it, it is unique to RES Pineapple Day. And so for those of us in the room who might not know, or as Dr. Batchelor said, the crowds of people listening right now who might not know what Pineapple Day is, maybe you could tell us about it.
Sure, I'd be honored to do that. So Pineapple Day has a little bit of some urban legend to it, just like the origin of the hawk and the story of why the hawk became the representation of Radnor Elementary School. So I'd love to share that story with you another time when my colleagues back here are not counting my minutes. The Pineapple Day came from a staff member who had Southern roots. And the pineapple is really rooted in that hospitality piece. But we have evolved it, and this is not my skill. This is really coming from the guidance team and our responsive classroom team, and a very strong and just passionate group of parents that represent our PTO. And that group of parents and the staff members worked together to create this day that would always be celebrated on the last day before spring break. And the idea is rooted in Southern hospitality, is that to be a true friend, we need to stay true to ourselves on the inside and value our worth, right? And they might not have used that language when it was originally started at Radnor Elementary School, but we represent it now, and that's the sweetness inside us. And that there's two things that we need to take care of ourselves and those around us, and to be a good friend to others, and that is to have that thick enough skin. It can still be pierced. We're not wearing armor. That's the wrong message, but that we're strong enough to protect ourselves and have our boundaries, but also strong enough to be forgiving and accepting when our friends maybe unintentionally hurt us, and to be able to move forward and have those skills to be able to do that. It's grown since then on the work of several teachers, and I'd like to highlight Ms. Monica Willens, who just recently earned the DCIU Excellence Award for teaching. She has worked very closely with our staff to identify student ambassadors. Those are children that go through an interview process. So while you do not need to be exceptional at everything you do, it is that you share that vision for our school, and the children apply. They do an application. If we have too many applicants, we do applications, and they represent the RES way for us. And that can include when we make mistakes and how we respond to that feedback and move forward and learn from feedback. And this year, we were able to take it just a little bit step farther. And again, I credit that to our PTO, who's just a remarkable group of people, and we could not do anything that we do at RES without them, to take it and highlight our connection to the Wayne Cares Foundation, which we have adopted and stay true to. We dive everything into Wayne Cares because we feel that brings a level of quality to our giving. And we were able to have that relationship with what they needed. This year they shared that they are desperately struggling with cereal. And so we had our newly elected PTO president brought it to the table, and several moms pulled it off, and we raised over 1,000, we gained over 1,000 cereal boxes to then drive down to the food pantry and deliver, and our facilities team helped. I mean, it was a collaborative effort across the district, and we're wildly proud. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Young.
All right, thank you.
And next we'll welcome Dr. Marzano and Ms. Bourne to the front to present about Wayne's Belonging Steps this year as well. And while they're setting up, I will share, not only is this team deeply committed in this work and all initiatives, but we have members of our elementary team making the 2.5-hour trek to Camp Canadensis tonight, so they may leave right after this. There's a long ride ahead, so. Dr. Marzano, take it away.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun camp. I'm ready. Well, good evening to the board. Good evening to the millions of viewers at home. And good evening, Kelly Bourne.
Good evening, Dr. Marzano.
So we're coming toward the end. We're not there of our first year together. And I have to say, it's been a blast. It's been a really good time. How have you felt?
Fantastic, terrific, great, all day long. Woo.
So we look at our goal for belonging this year, and it was to utilize the Dignity Framework to build a community of trust, emphasize clear communication and relationships, and support a shared vision of continuous improvement.
We are also not going to read from the report, you have it all, but instead synthesize and give things away at a high level. We also wanted to tell this more as a story of our year, because it's been quite a tale. A good one, with conflict, resolution, a lot of character development, at least that's how I feel. And so to really summarize the beginning of the year, our goal was to start strong, and that did begin with building strong relationships. So some of the first things that Dr. Batchelor told me, you'll probably be doing some different things in this district than you were in your previous district. Use any of that extra time to build relationships, and that was our emphasis. We did that by meeting with folks. We did that by establishing new norms. We did that really by observing our culture, our operations, our instruction, so that we didn't miss anything really important as we transitioned to Wayne. Our theme remains as true today as it was the first day, and that is to learn and grow together. We then transitioned to the middle of our year.
And so at the middle of our year, we really focused on what being proactive, supportive, and implementing restorative practices. Oh, the mic's not on? Oh, there we go. What it means. And so we did a sub-team of our MTSS team, which comprised of myself, Jen Becker, the MTSS coach, Amy Ziegler, our SEL teacher, and we met every week, and we focused on looking at behavior referrals. We focused at looking at trend reports within our Linkit system and just doing observations around the school building. We came up and identified some students who we decided they needed someone to connect to within the building. And so we ourselves took it upon ourselves to give staff members children. Michael had some scholars that he checked in with, had lunch with, made sure that if they were having rough days, that he implored some positive connections. So we did that in being proactive. We used those opportunities to reteach our behavior expectations, to reinforce positive behaviors through recognition systems, and we increased staff collaboration to anticipate and prevent challenges. We then focused on being supportive. And so we implemented those targeted supports, check-in, check-out, lunch bunch. We updated behavior plans. We did classroom observations to give teachers just some other tools to help engage scholars within the classroom. And most importantly, we communicated with the families to let them know what we were doing, what goals we were working on, and if there was anything that we needed to know for the school environment. And then next, we focused on being restorative. And so we used restorative conversations with scholars, with staff, with classrooms when there was harm or we were reporting back from a situation, and we gave scholars reflection tools to help build trust. And so these efforts helped us to reset, refocus, and re-engage our school community the many times we needed to, but in a shared commitment to student success and well-being.
So that sets us up looking toward the end of our year. And as education's a people business, this is really about giving power to the people. And so Kelly talked about some of the things that we were working on, some of the individuals and teams that we empowered. But as we get toward the end of the year, this is about setting our sights on a shared future. That means taking the time to invest in those teams and the people on them to do the work together. What got us here won't get us there. Kelly and I were pretty good teachers, had some great experiences, but this is about the teams of adults that already work at Wayne and know our students and know our community. And so it's with those teams that we outline some of our next steps that I'll talk about at the end of our presentation as we set ourselves up for a summer of planning, reflection, and then really developing what we want next year to look like. Our staff climate survey came at the middle of the year as well. And this was an interesting opportunity to get some challenging feedback, but that can be very good. One of the big challenges is how contradicting some of the feedback was. It kind of felt like we had a tale of two schools. Some folks said we meet too much. Some folks said we don't meet enough. Some folks said I hear from you too often. Some folks said I don't hear from you enough. And so when that happens, it is the principal's job to navigate some of the gray area to places of certainty and to do so by building consensus. And so we had a wonderful sit down as a whole staff where we presented the controversy. We said, here are some of the things we're hearing on both sides of this conversation, and we narrowed it down to these three big items. The idea of meeting time, the idea of communication, and most important to us, as you heard us describe, that idea of shared voice and shared leadership. One example I'll give is that in looking at the school calendar over the year, we noticed there were quite a few faculty meetings, there were monthly grade level team meetings, and many folks said, I'm not sure why we're meeting. I said, if you don't know why, just like a student in the classroom, that's my job to be more clear. And I'm not going to meet for no reason. I'm not going to waste time, which as many of my colleagues described is so precious. So we cut some of those meetings. And on this survey, many folks said, we missed those meetings. We had a chance to sit down and get to know you better, to build that rapport. And so we said, we're going to keep some of that. You don't need to meet every month for faculty or as many times. We're going to keep grade level team meetings. It's a place where we can build purpose together. We don't have to be the only ones who write an agenda for these meetings. You all bring purpose to these meetings as well. And that way we can navigate any of these challenges together as a team. What I'll talk more about toward the end is really how we then develop some of those leadership teams to do the work that you might find one person doing in some schools, but when that happens, it becomes very brittle. And so these decisions have to be more robust. And so what we explained to our school was the way or our vision for every team from MTSS to the parent or principal advisory committee, the SAP, and our, I'm going to blank on this last one, culture climate team. Thank you. So we then go on to our student climate survey, and one thing we noticed was all fours. Yeah.
However, when looking at our survey, we saw a decline in the number of students who felt like they were treated fairly. We took immediate and intentional action. Recognizing that fairness is foundational to a positive school climate, we mobilized our culture and climate team to lead small group listening sessions with our scholars. These scholar-led groups created space for students to share their experiences in a safe, respectful environment, reflect on what fairness looks like and feels like in classrooms, hallways, and within peer interactions and adult interactions. This gave an opportunity for them to offer solutions and ideas for how adults and peers can better support equity and inclusion. This approach was powerful. It helped validate scholar voice. Our students saw that their feedback mattered and led to real conversations and action. It helped to build trust by listening without judgment. We strengthened relationships between scholars and staff. And it informed practice. The insights that we gathered from our scholars are now guiding professional development, classroom practices, and school-wide initiatives to ensure every scholar feels seen, heard, and treated with dignity. So, Michael, where do we go from here?
I'm glad you asked, Kelly. So in that staff meeting, one of the most important questions we asked was, where do you see Wes in 3 years? And in order to model some of the vulnerability we were hoping people would embrace, I shared what my hopes were. We talked about trust. We talked about the importance of our norms and how we talk to one another, even if we have challenges or disagreements, because that models for our students the kinds of things that we hope that they grow to understand and demonstrate. We talked about how we all really deserve, even as adults, the opportunity to continue our learning. Some folks expressed that this year, sometimes, not this year, but school years can feel like a checklist. We did it, we did it, we did it, we're done. It's summertime, woo, that's it. But that's not really how learning is supposed to work. It's not transactional. And so instead, what we're discussing more often is this cycle of learning. What are the things we say we want to get better at? What is our plan for getting better at those things? After we've implemented that plan, how did we do? Do we feel or have we observed with evidence that this has been successful? And if so, or if not, we go back to our plan and figure out where do we go from here. This is something teachers are very good at already, as they lesson plan, teach, assess, and reflect to go right back to that same cycle of teaching and learning. And so we believe that our staff deserves the same attention, but we also know we can't do it by ourselves. We also don't think that we know everything, and we also don't think that sitting people in a room is the only way to get professional development. And so the way that I have become a better educator is by visiting people's classrooms. Yes, it's part of the job, but it is one of my favorite parts of the job, because that way I get a better perspective and build trust on what teachers can do, what our students can do, and most importantly, what do we need to do a little bit more of, or a little bit less of, for that matter. And so in that 3 years, we're really hoping to get folks into each other's classrooms. so that we can see all the great things happening across Wayne. And from whether you're a brand new teacher or a veteran, take something new away for your practice, for your colleagues' practice. Last, as the focus of our presentation is on belonging, we know that trust is everything, people-to-people relationships. And so we will continue to invest in our teams, the people leading this work, not micromanaging them, but empowering them to go to their colleagues, to go to our students, to perform the focus groups that Kelly discussed. Because as we said earlier, I think, Janie, you said this as well, some of these questions are clear, some of these questions raise more questions. We just continue to add questions upon questions. Let's just talk to the kids. Let's just talk to them. Surveys are helpful. We'll keep doing surveys, but they are the beginning of often a very long story. And also with some informative but hilarious student comments, if you want to ask some questions after this. So at the conclusion here, I am so appreciative, as I think I said in the fall, that this is the way we talk about our culture and climate as a school and as a district, because I really do believe this is the right work. It's the right book, it's the right people, and it's because it includes everybody in the building and the community. With that, I thank our board for the opportunity. I thank Dr. Batchelor, Dr. Dukevich, Dr. Bechtold for their support, because it can be difficult sometimes to go through these processes. We are working with people who we love, but who challenge us. And I also want to thank, most importantly, our staff for trusting us as two new leaders in our school and our district, because they are along for a lot of this together. So, thanks, y'all. They're all watching. I know they are.
Committee. Ms. Gurdon.
Again, thank you, an excellent presentation. I have a question for the two of you as a new team. If you were to fill out the climate survey, how would you rate your belonging this year here in Radnor?
Well, good news. There wasn't a Likert scale. It was all qualitative, so had paragraphs. I think like any new experience, you have to take the bad with the good. I think a lot of this has been trying to figure out between my previous experience and this one, 2 different states, 2 different cities, what's the same and what's different, and why are some of those things the same or different. I think one of the things that I give my staff a lot of credit for is that by asking questions, we've challenged some of the traditions or previously held belief systems around what we've been doing for a very long time, and not because we don't like it, but simply because we don't always understand it. And in that process, people can take that sometimes personally. I've been doing this way, and it has worked to this extent. Why are you asking? And so that is why the theme is so important to learn and grow together, is that whether we're asking them or they're asking us, you kind of have to give up a little bit of your ego in this. And that is something that we ask a lot of teachers to do with all the little personalities in front of them. You want certainty when you're in that classroom, because it can be scary without it and all those little eyes looking at you. It's not very different as a principal. And so I think it has come with those challenges, but it's made me better. And it also teaches me that a lot of the questions we're asking this year are probably questions we can keep asking, however new or veteran we'll be at Wayne.
So for me, I think my reflection is a little bit more deeper and internal for who I am and who I represent for Radnor and the possibilities, which I am so happy to be as an African-American woman, to be a presence in a school with scholars who don't always see themselves in educational spaces, especially in this community. And so I've had conversations with Michael about the importance of reaching out to our families who are unseen. And so Wayne is a Title I school, and so we do have a community of families that they look different, sound different, and financially they are not at the same class level as most of our families are. And so what are we doing for them? And so working with Lenore, working with Todd, working with HR to bring more faces to Radnor and figure out ways to remove some of those systemic barriers and just some of those perceptions that, Lenore and I spoke about. And she's like, Kelly, it's just great at Radnor. Who wouldn't want to come? I'm like, you see the stickers on the back of my car? I did that to make sure people knew like I was a friendly face. And I think that's something that we have to take a critical lens as a district. And I'm happy to do that with you Gabe's happy to do that. I'm speaking for them. This is called voluntold. But it's nice to be someplace where you really want to do that work, and there's that critical lens. And so when we look at our data and we look as a district with how our African American students are doing and where they need to go, it really goes back to the question, do you know enough about me to teach me? And it goes back to the question, do they see themselves within our buildings, on our walls?
Thank you.
Oh, wow, that's hard to follow. Well, Ms. Bourne, we are so glad you're here, and Dr. Mazzano, and all of you. I mean, it's just, it is so palpable how much you care. You know, you can just feel it, and the work is, you know, if we can make everyone feel like they belong, we know that that's the first step to achievement, right? So continue the good work. And I appreciate you being honest about the challenges, you know, because, you know, you are both new and, you know, it comes with challenges. So, but confident that you're clearly committed to working through that. And I think, you know, our district, our kids will benefit from that. So thank you.
Thanks.
I would just like to thank Ms. Girton for asking such a probing and insightful question, and I want to thank both of you for being so open and candid with your answers, just because I think we can learn a lot from your experience. You know, I think, you know, I love Radnor, but I think sometimes we can be kind of insular. And, you know, I think you reference some of those. I'm sure you've had experiences this school year with that. And I remember when we were hiring for your positions and, you know, other open leadership positions at the other schools, you know, I think there's always this debate about, you know, and the push-pull with, you know, promoting from within versus hiring from, hiring externally, and kind of the pros and cons, right? Because there's pros and cons to each. And I think, you know, and I'm sure Dr. Batchelor is going to do this if he hasn't already, you know, I think it would behoove us well to really learn from your experiences. And, you know, I'm just fascinated personally, and maybe this is a discussion in private rather than publicly, but like just how much you felt like, you know, kind of the proportion of like how much you felt like you had to adjust, you know, yourself to fit into Radnor, and how much you stood your ground and felt like you were bringing in something new that Radnor could benefit from, right? That Radnor had not seen a certain way or done a certain way, and kind of the push-pull and the balance that you had to strike, which I'm sure you have to do every day. Because I do see the value of bringing in new voices, new perspectives. But I also see the value of, we're very happy with Radnor, and of course we want to continue our tradition of excellence. But I think, we still have to keep growing, and I don't think we can grow just by kind of remaining insular and always doing, things the way we've always done them and assuming that it's the best way. So, I guess I just really want to express my appreciation for you taking a chance on us. And it sounds like, that you, at least in certain areas, you've stood your ground and really, have that confidence that, even though, your thoughts and ideas might be new, might be jarring, maybe even shocking for some people, that you kind of stuck to your guns and said, well, let's try it. Let's try it at least, right? And I appreciate that, because I know that can be tough to do, as, being new. So I thank you, Ms. Girton, for asking that question, because it didn't even occur to me. And I really appreciate it. And I hope, you guys will have follow-up conversations amongst yourselves with Dr. Batchelor and other members of the administration, because I think we could all learn a lot from your own personal experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, I would love at any point to continue the conversation, but I will say that we all took chances on each other here, right? That's how this works. It's a relationship. But I am consistently impressed by the talent that we have in Radnor, at Wayne, by the frequency at which we're consulted for every kind of policy that we're making as a district, and the fact that I feel heard, I will say that that is a bit different from a previous district. It was much larger, right? It's kind of hard. But with those things, there's not necessarily like a special magic, and that's one of the things that has been fascinating to determine what's the same and what's different, right? And I'm very fortunate to have great mentors in my life, but one of them, and before I even moved or had started looking at a job, said, you need to figure out what your non-negotiables are. And this was something that we talked about at that culture meeting where I said, I really care about teaching and learning. That's what I really want to talk about. Emails are not the most fun, I'll be honest with you. Being an administrator isn't exactly what you're signing up for to be a principal, right? They're different things. And so this is one of the ways in which I have felt so fortunate by our leadership, by our staff, that they trust us enough to have those conversations in our first year, no less. I've also gotten feedback from mentors that say, don't expect that in the first year. Don't. Don't try that stuff in the first year. You're going to scare people. They're not going to like you. And that's part of the experience. So we took a chance, too, this year in having some of those conversations, and I feel very lucky that it has landed in the way that it has so far, right? It's a constant balancing.
Okay, well, let me just start off by saying I will endorse everything that has been said by my committee members. Covered a lot of ground. One thing to pull out that, I'm just impressed and I think encouraged by this report. Seems like you're doing a fantastic job, and it means a lot to us in this community. It means a lot to us as board members, but community members as well. Just a couple of brief ideas or comments. I really liked how you were talking about professional learning cycles and how, you start, you stop, and you do this thing, and then you move on, and then you maybe do it again or you don't. But having this model or this disposition to cycles, I think that's, when it comes to professional development, I really like that you emphasize that. In the culture of belonging, I think that these concepts can be taken in multiple directions. I just really like how the direction that you've taken this concept in. You're taking the concept of culture seriously. Culture is built on norms and building shared norms, and it seems like you are both leaders that are taking bold action in doing that, and I really appreciate that. And you're building the foundations of a strong school culture. And again, I'll just go back to my original statement. That means a lot to us in the community and on the board, so thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Marzano and Ms. Bourne.
Thanks.
And next we'll bring up Dr. Wildlick and Dr. Kent. And in the spirit of belonging, we are getting close to 7 o'clock, and I feel badly that one of these days I think we need to flip the script here. Start with the high school.
Right, start with-
I think we should do that.
We're doing all right.
We're doing all right.
It's
All
important
right,
stuff.
Dr. Wildlick and Dr. Kent, whenever you're ready.
Well, good evening, everyone. We will try to be as efficient as possible. Dr. Kent, myself, Ms. Manuki, and we are beyond proud to lead the best middle school around. Best students I've ever come across in my 23 years of education, teachers, staff, community. We're pretty lucky. And at Radnor Middle School, we believe that belonging is not just a goal, it is a daily commitment. We work very hard to ensure that every student and every staff member is valued, heard, appreciated for their unique identity and individuality. We strive to create an environment where warmth, acceptance, and appreciation are felt in every classroom, hallway, and every interaction. Our work is rooted in the belief that when people feel seen and when people feel celebrated for who they are, they thrive. So this presentation will highlight the intentional steps that we have taken and that we will continue to take to ensure that every person in our school who walks through our doors know that they matter. So a couple months ago, Dr. Kent did an amazing job presenting to the school board what our action steps were for the 2024-2025 school year. And I'm just going to briefly just review them with everybody. Ms. Duffy, you mentioned about the student picture activity, the student gallery walk. The student gallery walk is where we have pictures of every single student who is in our building, and our staff does a gallery walk in the winter and then also in the spring to ensure that every student is truly known by one adult or more in the building beyond the surface level of they are a student at Radnor Middle School. And we are very proud that we had a handful, right, who had 3 identification markers or less this go around, and we did everything, or we are doing everything in our power to ensure that those handful of students who, for the most part, came later in the year, that we were intentional on getting to know them, and it wasn't disingenuous or anything like that, but that was a clear focus. The thank you for being you staff book. It's a small gesture where staff members identify things that they are interested in. And let's say Dr. Kent does something and I want to celebrate him. So a small little gesture, I go to the staff book and then I do something for him that he identifies within the book. Our power skills, student recognition. I talk a lot about hard skills. We need to talk a lot about the soft skills, right? So twice a year we honor students who exemplify communication, collaboration, creativity, and responsibility. This year we did the My Intent word activity where students and staff members had the opportunity to choose one word that was going to be their driver, their focus for the year, where they serve as daily reminders for their individual purpose and growth. Our Villanova mentorship and partnership, Dr. Kent worked very hard and has worked very hard with the ongoing partnership with the Villanova women's basketball team. For 8th grade girls, we're working on a new collaboration with the Villanova men's football team for mentorship. These programs foster confidence, connection, as well as inspiration. We did a little speed dating activity, but it wasn't speed dating in its sense. But what it was an opportunity for staff members, because we're a 4-floor building. And when you are a 4-floor building that is separated by grades, 6th grade might not get down to 8th grade just because of the schedule and the physical proximity of one's room to the other. So this was an opportunity for staff to bounce around and really just have, pretty poignant, sharp, really interesting conversations with one another. And that's something that we did a couple times throughout the year. I could go on and on, like our Spirit Days, our student development series, No Place for Hate, our luncheons, our activities where staff get together. We want to do everything to make sure that people feel welcome and people feel heard, which is what I started the presentation with. So if we could jump over to our survey analysis, and let's start with our areas to celebrate. In the survey that staff took, it was identified that we have a collaborative culture, a strong sense of teamwork, and resources that create welcoming and connected environments. Approachable leadership. We all have open door policies, and staff members, students, anyone has access to any leader, which in return builds trust and fosters flexibility within the building. Recognition and positivity. We will celebrate everyone for anything, right? At the end of the month, our special ed department was nominated for the DCIU 2025 Making a Difference Award, and the entire department won that award. The entire special education department. Professional growth. Our staff said that was a strength. Robust development opportunities where skills and confidence are enhanced, and ultimately a supportive environment. And what I mean by that is in times of need, our staff has one another's backs, no matter what. People are stepping up for emotional and practical support where a caring culture is truly reinforced. With that said, we do have areas of growth. We do have some needs. Some staff feel that there's disparities in access to resources and support, and that's something that we're laser focused on. We need to take a look at that. We need to peel back the layers of resource equity. Time limitations. The staff identified that there is limited time for true, deep, authentic collaboration. And so as an administrative team, we're looking to optimize scheduling, and prioritize our essential activities as a staff. Communication improvements. We're constantly looking on how we can streamline our communication efforts, and we will continually update our staff on how those channels are being developed. And we're always looking for feedback on improving our communication. Excuse me. In terms of our students, we are very, very proud of our of our student survey result scores. One thing I do want to identify, and I can't speak for the high school and I cannot speak for the elementary school, but as you know, this survey provides students an opportunity to answer questions based on a scale of never true, sometimes true, usually not true. So when 11, 12, 13, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and the staff does an amazing job in trying to discern what they mean. But sometimes there is confusion, at least in talking with kids about the questions, that there's confusion that stems from the subtle differences in the frequency and the certainty that each phrase implies. So like usually not true or sometimes true. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there, especially when you're dealing with middle school students, excuse me. But some strengths. Our students feel that they belong. 83% of our students feel connected to our school community. They feel encouraged. They feel accepted. They feel that they have academic support. The teachers are interested in them, and they are recognized for their efforts routinely. We're not sitting back and we're not just, celebrating that. We're constantly driving to improve those scores. In terms of opportunities for growth that were identified, peer relationships. Students want one another to strengthen how each other value and listen to their opinions. Deep listening is just not an adult activity. Deep listening is something that our kids, we need to educate our students on. And we do so in 6th grade through our boot camps and through our executive functioning courses, but really working with our students on how to listen, to understand, and not respond. That is, if I can do that with my middle schoolers at home, that would be fantastic. But I think that is a tried and true skill that even adults, and I'll say myself, sometimes do not have, right? So really, again, deep listening to understand and not to quickly respond. We want to increase the number of students who feel validated by their teachers. And in terms of participation, our students ask for more student agency, some more voice in the development and participation of school activities. Now, the last year when we collected some data, we were very proud to say that we had over 75% of our students actively involved in an extracurricular or a co-curricular activity, still a driving force behind what we do. We want to see maximum participation by all of our students. Dr. Kent?
Thank you, Dr. Weilich. Good evening, everyone. First of all, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades are challenging times. And it can be a challenge on a daily basis for not only our students but our staff. And I think listening to what Dr. Weilich was talking about, one word I would really refocus on is connection. We spend so much time trying to connect with everyone in the building, students and staff. So I'm gonna finish up here just talking about next steps. So of everything that we did this year, we are going to continue with those things. But then we have 10 to 12 other things that have been identified by staff that we are going to also move forward with, many of them around the idea of connection. So one thing that is certainly not new, but we want to really brush up a little bit and see what we can do more with it is our Where Everyone Belongs program, which is commonly known as WEB. So that's been in the middle school for a very, very long time, and we're talking about belonging, obviously. So what can we do with our WEB leaders? How can we further use that process and that system that we already have in place to continue to foster these connections from student to student? Because that is something we heard, from our students of how do we increase those opportunities and quite frankly get better at that, connecting with each other as students. We are certainly looking at some new initiatives. Dr. Weilich's working on a new 8th grade empowerment group for boys focused on service and leadership. So we have already established Girls Lead that's been at the middle school for quite some time. So this will be a program focused with our boys. And we're excited to learn from some other middle schools locally who already have a similar program and bring that to our middle school next year. Looking at service opportunities for all of our students, trying to create opportunities because we know the earlier you give back in life, the more likely you will continue to do that as you all are serving your community, our community, by giving back in service. But really instilling that in our students at a young age and making sure they understand the value of that, but really what they can gain also from that when they give back to their community. So looking for opportunities across the board. Expanding our student development programming in terms of, just different offerings we're bringing in terms of assemblies, but also trying to engage with how can we create scenarios and situations where kids can learn from kids. Whether it's peer tutoring in math that we can put in HMS, just looking at different ways that we can help the kids connect, because again, that's one thing they focused on in the survey results. Dr. Weilich mentioned how we celebrate our students through soft skills and, expanding those opportunities so we can acknowledge more students, certainly very, very powerful. It was also mentioned the idea of student voice. So we are piloting with a grade this year, a principal advisory council. So each team in the 7th grade identified 4 students on their team, and they were charged with, we want this to be a very representative group of our entire school. And I've met with these students and, just gave them a free forum to talk to me about what they're seeing, what can make their experience better, and very enlightening some of the things that they shared, from water pressure in the building, which was surprising, to things about homework or tests or whatever the case may be. So it was a very enlightening conversation. We're continuing to do that. Elevating staff voice, giving staff more opportunities. Obviously, anytime decisions are made, if people feel invested in the decisions, then they're more likely to, make sure things are carried through. So looking for avenues, and through this committee at the middle school, it truly is teacher-driven and staff-driven, I should say. I'm the administrator that oversees it, but what we do is really staff-driven. It's coming from their initiative, their ideas, and that really helps our staff kind of latch on to, what's coming from within, which has been fantastic. Dr. Marzano mentioned teachers getting in to see each other. Working with Dr. Dukevich, we're going to pilot next year with our 8th grade teachers the idea of peer collaboration in terms of the observation cycle, where they're going to get in and observe each other and give each other feedback in the teaching process. So these are just some of the ideas that we're focusing on. There are more that the committee's talking about in terms of what we want to do to move forward, but it's, to use a Radnor phrase, continuous improvement. What are we doing? What can we do better? And, what can we kind of continue to polish up that we already have in place? So, thank you.
Thank you, gents. Okay, committee, thoughts, comments, questions?
If anyone, okay. First of all, thank you both, excellent. I had the privilege to be in the middle school today, and it was a really great reminder. Dr. Kent, you referenced it, but when you really work with kids that age, you are reminded that it feels like maybe that you're kind of trapped in your body at that age, and it was really wonderful to be with them today, and the school, how you run programs and how you run that school is really evident that the kids represent kind of that evolution of learning and curiosity. They want to move forward in their lives, even though it's difficult where they are. So that I appreciate this kind of follow-up with what my experience was today. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what all of the things that they're learning and that they understand and they're talking about. And this belonging at this stage in their lives, I think, is super important. And it's not always easy. So I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
I want to apologize to Dr. Kent if I had not mentioned you before when I spoke about what really touched me the last time in terms of
Dr.
that
Weilich's
effort.
idea,
Yes.
so it's not a problem.
Okay. So, but I think it's a beautiful gesture, and I think for the reason we were saying, so important if you are one of those kids that does not feel seen. So I just wanted to say I love the idea of the service, thinking more about it, and I'd just like to say, I think we do such an amazing job with that mini-thon, but that's such a grand gesture, and it's about raising money, and it gets, I know in families get competitive, you know, like, I just love the idea of service, just smaller gestures, just teaching them that it's just, might be a note that they write, might be something small, but that can really make a difference in someone's lives. So I just love that. And I know that in our high-performing district, I was part of that committee, and we were looking at other districts, and I think service kind of came up a lot, so it'll be interesting. I know we don't have the results yet, but whether that's something that we'll see as a district initiative. So, yeah, and just the idea of encouraging broader student participation in school activities. I think, you know, when you look at these percentages, you know, while I think they're really strong, but, you know, kind of like, you know, in middle school, we were talking about a 7%. You know, here we now, we're probably 15%, 17% sometimes. How do we hone in on those kids and really find, you know, a way to get them to maybe raise their hand just once, just a little bit more, right? It's incremental and recognizing that, you know, it's a process. So thank you for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you because out of all of the schools, I think belonging is probably the most critical at the middle school, just given the challenges of early adolescence and all of the social pressures. So thank you for being so thoughtful in your actions. I agree. I love this emphasis on service. I actually recently spoke to the local chapter of the Young Men's Service League, I think is what it's called. So maybe you could partner with them. Why reinvent the wheel or compete with each other? I saw a lot of Radnor boys there. And I do think, boys, are worthy of our focus right now. There's a lot in the national news these days about what's going on with young men and boys. I love that idea, and I'm happy to make that connection for you. But I just want to say, now that my youngest is about to, move on to the high school, I just, personally just want to say how much I appreciate, just based on my own personal experience being on the PTO. I remember when I was recruited to serve on the PTO, and I was basically told, like, just make sure you run everything, by leadership so that they know what we're doing. And, but it was pretty much, just like, make sure they know what we're doing. And we kind of, make things easier for them and kind of stay out of their way and don't complicate things for them. And what I found is not only do you guys condone and tolerate what we do, but you often go above and beyond and have even better ideas, and you take it and you run with it. And so I just really appreciate that attitude as well, of just going above and beyond and not just saying like, oh, okay, you guys want to do this? Great. Like, we'll let you do that. But, taking those ideas and making them even bigger and better. And Dr. Wyde, like, for the Veterans and Memorial Day ceremonies, I mean, that's just kind of like very typical, I think, of your approach. And I get so many compliments for that, and I always have to tell them, actually, that was Dr. Weinlich's ideas, and it wasn't even me. But I get so many compliments, and you've just taken that and grown it, and that's the one thing I get the most compliments for. I just want to say, like, for the middle school, especially, given that it's this transitional period and phase, it can be hard to interpret the data, right? Because it's like a lot of times it's hard to figure out what the students are trying to say. And I think they probably are changing year to year, month to month, and they might not know what they're really trying to say. So, I just kind of appreciate all of the extra work that you have to put in on this subject. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be brief. Thank you. Once again, as I've said before, really impressive what we're offering our community and our kids. One thing that I'll just take the time to say while I think of it is that, and I've said this before in public meetings, is that, schools can't do everything. And we often in our society expect schools to do a lot more than just teaching and learning. That said, if we can do more than teaching and learning and expand that, if we have the resources to do it and the will to do it, then why not? And so I think that Radnor really exemplifies that. And in that sense, it makes me very happy to see all of these presentations tonight so far. A couple other quick points. during our recent debate about library materials, something that really was at the center of it for me was about secular and religious morality, and how do we define what secular morality is, and how to treat people well, what is empathy. And in all of these presentations tonight, we've seen our district really model what a good working sort of approach to public morality is and secular morality is. It makes me proud on a kind of a high level that we're modeling these kinds of behaviors and values at a very young age. And so hats off to the administration from the superintendent on down that we're doing that. And then finally, something that Ms. Lau mentioned, and something that I'm involved, a topic that I deal with in my own work at Penn, is providing opportunities for young men to reflect upon paths in their lives, and also our responsibility as adults to model positive masculinity. I think that that's very, very good that we're doing that, and I'm very encouraged to see that. So I'll echo what Ms. Lau said. So thank you for that too. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wilder. Thank you, Dr. Kent. And finally, we'll welcome Dr. McNamara and Dr. Lee to the front. I promise, Dr. McNamara, we'll do a flip sometime soon. You guys will start. Yes. They're so patient.
So I'll give a shout out to my colleagues who are leaving right now. So, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much. We know you guys have sat through a whole bunch of presentations, and at the high school level, we have some wonderful things to share about belonging, and it can be difficult in a building of over 1,100 students to make sure that we truly are meeting all the needs of all of our young people. So when they walk in, it's our primary concern when they walk through that they do have a place where they call home, including our staff, our teachers, and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Lee, who is our chair for the Belonging Committee.
Thank you, Dr. McNamara. It has been my honor to lead the Belonging Committee at Radnor High School. The Belonging Committee consists of teachers, paraprofessionals, school counselor, social worker, administrative assistant, and myself. We meet biweekly to ensure that we are increasing a sense of belonging and connectedness with all stakeholders at Radnor High School. We want to identify the area of growth and address various needs from all stakeholders to ensure that we are providing appropriate opportunities, access, and support for all student subgroups that we serve at Radnor High School. I'll turn to Dr. McNamara, and he'll share more details for our action plan and survey data.
So folks, we've had a whole bunch of different things that we have at the high school level, many different things that we're doing, and again, focuses on all of our students and our staff. We do many different things, like we give shout outs to our teachers and staff during faculty and staff meetings, and it's not just our teachers, but it's our paraprofessionals, it's our cafeteria workers, it's anyone who works directly with kids, from our security team to our administrative assistants. We give our shout outs during the faculty and staff meetings. We have a Student of the Month initiative that we did this year, so when you walk through, that's the very first thing you see when you walk into high school, and we honor a student from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. It is a teacher-led initiative, and then we put our young people on the wall for the entire school year, and parents can come through and actually do a QR code to see the wonderful write-up on our kids. It's really caused a thing in our school this year, and students come to me in the hallway, how do I get on the Student of the Month wall? What do I have to do, Dr. Mack? And I'm like, well, you have to talk to your teachers, you have to do this and that. It's all about integrity, but the kids feel when they come in that they have this sense of pride in the school because they want to be on that wall, So that's this new thing that we started this year, and kudos to Jess Goldie Scott as well as Kristen Flowers, who lead that initiative at the high school with our young people. We also honor our young people by doing constantly posting on social media through Instagram, and it's not just our athletics; it's everything. It's from our students who are achieving in band, in the orchestra, on the track and field, in football and lacrosse. It's everything. Good things that are happening in the school. We also highlight all of our young folks and our teachers through appreciation weeks. We just wrapped up our Educator Appreciation Week last week with honoring our teachers and staff with a wonderful lunch, courtesy of our Belonging Committee. But it's just a little thing for us to do. Also, when we work through the high school, we also have different avenues for students to go through, like our weight room at the end of the school day, where Coach Ryan is helping our folks who may not necessarily belong to a certain club or activity, but he embraces those folks at the end. So our kids come every day wanting to lift in our new facilities with Coach Ryan, and they love it. I mean, that's the whole point. That's why we're here tonight, expressing our belonging to our board, to show what we're doing. And our Wellness Wednesday, which, by the way, what Kara Miller failed to say was that one of our initiatives that we had was we brought puppies in. And it literally drew about 300, 400 plus students. So when they say 20 to 40, on Wellness Wednesday, they flooded to see puppies. So much so that we're going to be doing it several times this year. But kids enjoy that. And that's the pride we have at the high school. Our school leadership maintains a strong presence in the classroom and hallways. As part of our belonging, we want to make sure our teachers are feeling supported and our students are. They love to see myself and Dr. Lee and Ms. Rudisil and Mr. Presley in the hallways, in the classrooms, at events, cheering our teams on, being at clubs, being everywhere, being seen. So again, it's all part of that process. We strengthen our relationships with our administrative team, teachers, and students through monthly meetings. I hold them once a month, and I've shared that before with our teachers, our PTO, our administrative assistants, our students, and we just gather feedback. So when we really want to talk about belonging in our school, it's listening and taking on what we're doing for the betterment of our school, our community, and it's not just saying thank you and then have a good day. It's actually having action items that come from those meetings, follow through, follow up with students, parents. Our parents appreciate that. Our teachers appreciate it, and our students do as well. It's what is that connectedness in the community. So as we move forward, we involve our students, our staff with decision-making processes. Just to kind of go through this very briefly or quickly. We have also analyzed key themes for feedback and implemented targeted improvements. We've streamlined communication. One thing that came out of our faculty forum this year was that there's emails flying all over the place with the administrative team and teachers and so forth. So we've streamlined with a weekly SMORE that we send out with just major updates, and it's all from one source. And we update that every Thursday to go out to our teachers and our staff. We review professional development opportunities and what can we do to improve. It's not just Dr. Lee and Dr. Mack and the administrative team show. We unite with our teachers and our students to hear their feedback as well. We establish committees to address key concerns, one of them being a new, with Dr. Hamby behind me, a new media committee that we're doing that we just started this school year, actually just recently. And how can we increase our media game at the high school level, and how can we improve? Or just a space committee, knowing that our building is older, but we want to make sure we're providing the right space to our kids. So we are also hosting, again, faculty and staff forums, and again, I'm really proud of the forum meetings that I hold every month with the students, because that's where we get the voice. We've done so much this school year with our students because of the voice they have shared at our monthly meetings. And that's anything from our LM dance. They said, we want an LM dance. And seeing 800 to 900 students coming to our dance this school year, I mean, that's belonging. That's a sense of commitment and a sense of pride to our school. We've also brought Quizlet, courtesy of our tech folks with Scott Hand behind us. Our students said, we want a Quizlet program where we can study better in school. Can you help us out with that, Dr. Mack? I said, you got it. So we did it for them. That's what builds that community in school. So when we take a look at some of the data results that we got from Dr. Hosteller, and we went through, and just to briefly go through this, our staff climate was very good. Overall, it was very positive. It was very inclusive and very supportive. Our teachers love the fact that we are uniting with them in the decision-making process because they have a say in what goes on during the school day, and we go back and forth, all for the betterment of kids. They appreciate us being around and being visible and being so collaborative with them. But there is areas that we can improve from our lens here. We're taking a look at trying to get even more smaller class sizes, more equity in schedules, providing more teacher voice, and modifying some of our professional development to meet our teachers' needs. But in the end, the climate survey comes back as positive and very inclusive. And then we have our student survey, and I'm proud to say that Dr. Hosteller, who you have heard about all night, openly shared at the high school team that we had a score of 4.16 across the board. He flat out said that it's one of the highest scores he has seen in the nation. And he travels from school to high school. I mean, we're really proud, and I really we walked home or drove home that day feeling very proud of where we are because of the hard work that we're doing, as well as uniting with our teachers and our students. So he definitely shared that, how do you go up when the scores are so good? And that makes me feel so good, knowing our kids are walking in every day. So if we're talking about an area for us to improve in at the high school level, we got a 3.81 for students feeling that they're validated, and it's really coming from peer to peer. So we need to do a better job in making sure our kids are really going after one another and supporting one another. And if I'm being honest, a lot of it is the high school can be so competitive. We live in a very competitive area from here, TE, and Lower Marion, and our students are constantly competing with one another to have that. So I feel like when I hear that, they struggle with being validated amongst peers, they really feel validated amongst the staff, but it's peer to peer. We have some work to do with that. We've got to figure that out. And I've actually opened up meetings with parents at back to school night or during Winterfest and so forth. And I've shared that openly, that I feel like we put a lot of pressure on our young people to do so well. And as a result, they're competing with one another, and then they're not taking each other's opinions because they want to be the top and they want to put down that next person. So we have work to do in that area. But overall, despite this, the survey results do indicate that students feel a strong sense of connectedness and belonging to the school. And we have great kids. We do. But we have work in that specific area. So Dr. Lee is going to present our next steps.
So we want to continue our Belonging Committee work that we plan to meet bi-weekly. We also want to ensure that we are sharing our commitment to be more sensitive to diverse group of stakeholders that we have at Radnor High School. We also want to strengthen our No Place for Hate program to further support a culture of respect and inclusion. And we also want to demonstrate and implement data-driven decision-making process that is fair and respectful for all diverse stakeholders. We'll continue our monthly forums with the students, staff, and families to gather meaningful feedback and foster dialogue. We are committed to modeling empathy, patience, openness, and active listening into daily interactions and leadership practices so that our students, teachers, staff, parents, and families can see how much we are taking this seriously to ensure that every single student feels that strong sense of belonging and connectedness, and that we believe in them and that they can be more successful as we provide highest quality of education that they can receive at Radnor High School. So that's all that we have today. Do you have any questions for us?
Okay, committee?
Really brief. First of all, well done. High school is the greatest place. Love it.
We agree.
Yeah, it really is. And I appreciate that piece of a place to improve is to a self-awareness that peer-to-peer competition weighs heavy on not only administrators, but it weighs heavy on the kids. And as graduates of Radnor, it's the first thing they look back on, and it's a positive as well, because it actually keeps them prepared for what's next, but that they probably all look back and wish it wasn't as competitive. and that they could have supported each other a little bit better. So I don't know exactly where that work's going to come, Dr. Back and Dr. Lee, but I appreciate that you've recognized that as something to think about.
Yeah, that was a topic of our conversation with Dr. Hosteller, because we also said the same, like, how do we improve in that area? How can we get better with peer-to-peer? And I think that comes from the voice of our kids, from student government, from our student forum, to really lay that out. Hear from our kids, how can we do this? How can we get better? So we are working on that. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just make a suggestion. I think not only the kids, but even teachers, because I will say that my daughter was in one of, I think, considered one of the tougher classes, the viewpoints class at the time. And one thing that was so remarkable about that class and her experience, and it might have been her cohort, but just how supportive they were of one another's success. And it was, I think there was something about even how the teachers approached that, like there were rewrites, and then they would celebrate when they did a little better. So, there was almost a culture in the learning environment. So maybe our teachers should also be, I think, consulted, and how we can have practices in the classroom that can recognize, this reality and how they can help mitigate that, perhaps. And, I think we heard a reoccurring theme this night about empathy, and I think the idea of discussing and emphasizing empathy for others, I really think will help us. And I will say, I do think our high school is the greatest place, and I love to hear that it's one of the best, because I have felt, and I know it is a lot of what you do and our leadership does, but our Instagram is so inclusive. I feel like we celebrate the athlete, we celebrate the musician, we celebrate the high Q person. You just do such a great job, really making, all things. We celebrate diversity, we celebrate different people's talents, and I always say, I feel like after the middle school, which is just, we've recognized tonight is such a tough period, I feel like there's lots of path to happiness and belonging in our high school, and I think the fact that we celebrate it in social media, because our kids look at that, our community looks at that, but I know you do it in the classroom as well, is really, I've certainly taken notice. I think we've made really big strides on that front, and I think there's no surprise that the kids, you have numbers reflecting that they feel that way. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, this challenge of kind of the peer pressure of, being a student in a high-performing school district, I don't have the answers. I do think part of it is, really trying to convince the kids that it's not a zero-sum game. And I know that even when the colleges roll around, they try to emphasize this point as well, right? That, literally every person is unique, right? And has their own talents and has different ways in which they can contribute to their school and to their community. And it's really all about fit, right? And it's really all about, kind of finding your own path, charting your own path. And that's almost more important, right, than conquering the already established path, right? And kind of giving kids the courage and kind of like cultivating and fostering that creativity to chart their own path, right? And be a trailblazer, in their own way, rather than, just kind of, checking off the boxes of the well-worn path. So, easier said than done, and as the parent of a junior, we're just starting, and he's my oldest, we're just starting on this college application journey. So I get it, I get kind of all of the pressures and the stress of that. But, I do think, just kind of constantly emphasizing, be your own person. You be the best version of you. And that's going to be good enough, right? And kind of resist this temptation. Because honestly, the pool can get infinitely larger than just your class or even Radnor High School, right? Like everybody is not going to be number one at some point, right? Because your pool just gets larger and larger. So it's not even worth it, right? To try to win that, because nobody wins it, honestly, right? Like, so, but it's tough. It's tough when you're taking the SAT. It's tough when when you see other people, being, winning awards and accomplishing amazing things. It's tough to kind of, stick to that perspective. But, I appreciate the teachers who do try to de-emphasize this kind of rat race perspective, and there's only so much of the pie to go around, and and if you miss out, then then you're not gonna get into the college of your dreams. Like, just this, I think maybe just constant reemphasis by all of us, parents, teachers, and maybe hopefully it'll filter down to the students. I will have to say, like, I have heard students who have this very healthy perspective. It's not every, like I have heard, young people in Radnor who, like, to me, I was like, wow, like, I didn't come to this realization until I was well into my 20s or 30s, and they already have this perspective. So I think they, those who, embrace that, like, I think they should be elevated, right? Like, they should be, their voices should be amplified, because I don't think, it's unheard of. It's just maybe they get drowned out sometimes by, this kind of constant pressure to achieve.
I could not agree with you more.
And can I just say, I just again, I'm so thrilled that it's on your radar.
Yeah.
Like, that is just something we haven't seen before. I haven't seen in the discussion here, and the fact that you've identified it and it's something that we can do. I mean, I think we're serving our kids well when we do that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And and I'll add just a couple things that. So my kids are in middle school and elementary school, so not in the high school yet. I'm sure I hear rare reviews. So I also go back to something that was said earlier, which is that adolescent years, it's when human beings really discover sociality in groups, and the process of individuation, figuring out who they are, but also figuring out what groups they're a part of. I mean, these are core processes. I'll say another thing, which is that, just repeating from earlier, which is that, schools do what schools do, but there's the outside world out there. And, in some ways, we're kind of running against the stream. I think by all accounts, we live in a highly individualistic society. I think that we have an economy and a system that is quite competitive. So these are realities of life. So we want to prepare our kids for those realities, for sure. But at the same time, it's also within our purview and our remit to prepare kids for that and to support them and to show them alternative ways and alternative and effective ways. So I was thinking about the Viewpoints classroom, and I'm thinking about applying that to, okay, how do I interact with people at work, and how are we effective at work? And it always comes down to effective collaboration and good communication, and these are all skills that kids can learn in high school. And it sounds like from these initiatives that those needs are being met, and it's very encouraging. I'll just say a couple other things quickly. So I think this was mentioned earlier in other presentations, but MTSS, I think the idea behind MTSS, we've talked about this a long time, that it is in some ways a belonging type initiative, in the sense that we're trying to include as many learners, all learners as possible, in as many ways as we can, rather. And that goes for kids that have kind of neurodivergence, to kids that might be struggling in one topic. They're really interested, their fire's lit for one topic but not another topic. Going back to what Janie was saying about, really imparting to kids that the room is, the world has enough room, rather, for all kinds of talents, and that there are lots of paths to happiness and to success. So I think that a lot of times kids get the message that, you have to have this path or that path. And this is a good time to show kids that they belong, and that their way of thinking and doing things and their interests can be supported. So that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you, Dr. McNamara and Dr. Lee. And next we'll bring up Mr. Stitzel, speak about the human resources component of the Belonging Initiative.
Great.
And
And
we're
again, sorry, Liz.
sorry to our
And
committee friends.
DJ and Lydia and Lon.
So well at the beginning of this meeting.
All right, I asked Mr. Stitzel here to share some of the action items that he and the Human Resources Department have taken on this year as part of the initiative.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. As far as what we've been doing, we've kind of upped a little bit with our job fairs. As you can see, previously we went to the basic job fairs that most districts do around here, but Lenore and I talked and we decided to expand, and I couldn't have done it without Lenore because she was great in getting us registered and getting everything squared away. But we really went across the state, if you look at where we've been. And what we do is we take resumes for people that, when we're talking to them, really feel like they fit. That, you know, Lenore's there with me, and if we feel they're going to be a good fit for Radnor, we take their resumes. She actually does a great job of keeping the information for us. And then when we have a position that we post, a lot of times she will reach out to them and say, hey, just to let you know there's a position posted. We do get some feedback from that, and people do apply. We've taken Gabe and Vaughn last year along with us, with the three of us from HR, and this year we inserted Kelly Bornin just because she has more educational experience, and I think that was a great thing as well. In the upcoming audit, we're always looking at ways to improve the HR department, and we've selected PASBO, and they're going to come in and do an HR audit for us. The two people coming in are Mark Holman. He's been in Harrisburg School District, York, and Lancaster City School Districts. So he's going to come in along with Bobby Billman, who has 22 years in the Central York School District in PASBO. And they're going to look at everything related to our HR. They're going to pick us apart and see what we can do to improve on. How are we doing with our interview process, our questions? Do we have a pinch point where we typically may lose candidates? You know, we get them to a certain point and they don't get to move on. So they're going to do everything that they can to figure out and help us what we're doing correctly and what we're not doing the best of and that we can improve. And, you know, I've always been about improvement. The first day Dr. Batchelor started with us, you know, he was asking the administrative team about things we can improve on the district. And I said, let's look at HR. And that was a few years ago when he started. And it's always there, and we always want to try to do the best we can and improve where we can. And then what we're going to do this summer is we're going to do the trainings based on the audits and what we can do to improve as far as our questioning and, again, our interviews with that. And then the central office team will review the audit, and we'll go from there with their suggestions. And I know it's been a long night, and I only have one slide, so I feel like I'm slacking compared to the 20, 30 minutes other people did, but I only had one page, so.
No, I think it's welcome, honestly. Thank you.
So if you have any questions for me, that'd be great if.
Committee?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Ms. Lau, appreciate it.
I think the audit is an excellent idea. I personally would be really interested in kind of learning, you know, when the time is appropriate, and kind of, you know, hearing, you know, what suggestions that they had for us. You know, because, you know, I just want to say personally, this is, you know, still very important to me, that we improve in this area in terms of having a workforce that is reflective and representative of the diversity of our student body. You know, so I look forward to kind of hearing our progress at the end of the year on this goal, on this initiative for the school year. I don't know if you were here when Ms. Bourne shared her experience.
Listening from
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So so I'm happy to see that she's involved and was willing to do you know, take on that additional role for us. So yeah, you know, I think this audit, you know, great. And, you know, I look forward to kind of hearing the results of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I echo those comments, very much so. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. And finally, I'll be incredibly brief because I could always come back to this. But just looking ahead to next year, if the board and community is curious about how we're taking the Belonging Initiative forward, for the last 3 years, we've really used the primary resource of Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity, the book, and our author group, the Dignity Consulting Team, Dr. Hostetler, et cetera. At this point, we feel like we're at a point where we need to go a little deeper, go into the classroom, the personal level, the individual level, and also to, not to say put a different spin on things, but there can be, after 3 years, a little bit of fatigue around one resource. So moving forward, we're looking at using the science of positive psychology. We have a great internal resource who was here for over 20 years as a teacher, Miss Christy Smith, who recently left and is doing this full-time in her own LLC. And she's working with industry leaders, other education agencies, et cetera. And she's already been doing work with us, with our teachers in professional development. So we put together a plan that really bridges our work through the dignity framework into the positive psychology framework. And she's really developed a great crossover. And that's what we're looking to implement next year. So just wanted to plant that seed and come back to that at a later date if there's any questions. But I'll pause for any questions. This was our last agenda item. I just had 2 housekeeping items I wanted to mention at the end that came up from questions throughout the presentations today.
Okay, great. Any comments or questions on this particular item before Dr. Dukevich? Okay, go ahead.
Great. 2 questions that came up. The SATs during the whole school, it did occur, thanks, Mr. Bechtold did some homework behind the scenes there, in 2020-21 during COVID due to testing sites being closed. So we had a reformatted version during that year, but that was kind of a unique experience. That might be the recollection that the person you know mentioned. Second to that, the virtual days at the high school, we do have 2 next year for the 25-26 calendar. It's the election day and primary day. But that's just for the high school. The other levels will operate either as a professional development day or in person.
Not to ask another question, but do you know why the SAT offers those in-school day administrations? Kind of like, what are the benefits of
Mr.
those?
Bechtold, come on down.
Aside from COVID, because they continue to offer them, I think, yeah.
So we offered SATs during COVID because a lot of the testing sites shut down. So it was during the 2020-2021 school year. We only offered it to our juniors, and because it's so staff intensive to be able to go and proctor these, because if you have accommodations, you're in very small groups, we had to put students that were freshmen, sophomores, and seniors on asynchronous work. So that means that we didn't even have like virtual where the teacher's in front of them. All of our staff were on there. Additionally, when we have an SAT day during the school day, other students in the surrounding area can sign up for it, and we have to take them. So we did an analysis, and 30% of the students that tested, and we had a full site, were Radnor High School students. 70% were from other local schools. So one of the things that we did as the administration was determined not to do that moving forward, just because we couldn't control who was in and who was not.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Dave.
Okay. And finally, apologies to the Facilities Committee.
Should I mention apologies? Yeah. Thank you. It is very important material. I'm glad that we were able to take the time tonight to cover that. And we're going to move forward now to any new business. Don't see that. Any public comment live? Dr. Kearney? Yeah. Okay, that's it. Here comes